Its scheduled meeting in Kakamega that was to happen tomorrow following the presidential directive that banned all kinds of political gatherings. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, however, confirmed that today's meeting in Sikri in Homa Bay County will continue as planned because preparations have been completed. He says the meeting will proceed as per the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 protocols. Here is Homa Bay Governor Cyprian Nawiti and Woman Representative Gladys Wanga.
Raila Amolo Odinga would like to consult with leaders, run dialogue with leaders of various backgrounds, various aspects of our life.
This region will come together and solidly be behind Raila Amolo Odinga in his bid to unite this country in support of his handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, but in his bid to move across this country, preaching the message of unity, the declaration of unity, Azimio la Umoja.
As the country continues to battle COVID-19 and positive cases steadily increasing, we ask, are the protocols from the Ministry of Health applicable to everybody, or are there special groups that can overlook the protocols? This is because despite President Uhuru Kenyatta and Health Ministry announcing the extension of COVID-19 protocols for 60 days, a section of politicians seem to be ready to disregard the protocols. Yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave new directives on COVID-19.
That all physical and in-person public gatherings and meetings, including political rallies, and campaign meetings for impending by-elections are hereby suspended with immediate effect for a period of 60 days. That enforcing these measures, all security agencies are directed to ensure that the organizers take personal responsibility and are held to account for any violation of the measures.
Now, if the President's directive is to be respected, why is ODM through the Secretary General Edwin Sifuna issuing statements confirming that today's meeting in Homa Bay will go on? Will security operators ensure the protocols are respected? This we wait to see. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for you retire.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
So has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice. Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
All right, it's already picking up this Tuesday morning. We're seeing traffic that has started to... okay, is it Tuesday or Thursday? It sounds like Tuesday. It's Thursday, and traffic is, like it was on Tuesday, already quite heavy on Mombasa Road. Heading out into the city and also inbound, we're going to see a bit of that issue through most of the morning today. It's not too bad, but we will see it pick up in a bit. Jogo Road as well, getting into the city. We're seeing Langata Road looking pretty good today. Coming off of Thika Road, getting into the city as well is not too much of an issue, but it just might be. So let's keep an eye on things as we start off the morning. Just a few minutes after 6 o'clock, we'll see what it looks like in about half an hour or so, and hopefully we can keep things managed well. The bypasses, remember, are good options for you to use this morning, getting in and out of traffic. SpiceFM KE is how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's get things started right this Thursday.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 after 6. Good morning. How are you doing? 19th day of August 2021. It's the first Friday of the week. Yeah, it's 2 days after Tuesday.
Me, I was on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's 2 days after Tuesday. Okay. The weekend cometh. How are you though, Ndu?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still feel like the week is young.
Yeah, you know.
I could just come out of the weekend.
I could just keep going another 3 days, you know?
Yeah. It's good. It's good energy. City, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
It's cold in here.
Yes, in my opinion, it's actually very cold.
You're highly opinionated, City.
Touche.
Wow. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Many conversations that we're going to be having today. Number one, vaccines. They arrived, some 400,000 odd doses from the UK. UK promise of 800-something doses. Tick. American promise of some doses. Pending.
Well,
government pending.
There's a tick because promises made and not kept. Tick.
Just good.
Okay. Just that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yeah. So we want to find out, where are these vaccines? What can we do? Can we send some boda to go and collect them? Maybe. If they're stuck somewhere.
If it's a place bodas can't go, we can arrange for donkeys to go and collect them.
You know, we can
Camels.
sort things out. Sema tu shida yako. Sisi tutakusaidia. So we'll be having somebody who's in charge of this from the Ministry of Health. He's spoken to us before, Dr. Andrew Muller. He'll be here at 9 o'clock. We want to find out where are our vaccines and then what's the plan, the rollout plan for the vaccines that are already in the country. When we talk about low vaccine uptake, as the nation has been reporting recently, what do we mean by that? And how many people have so far taken the vaccine? Okay, that is one conversation. Another conversation that we'll be having is on the performance of the 11th and the 12th Parliament. This is the 12th Parliament. The one previous was the 11th Parliament. Somebody who was leader of the majority in the entire term of the 11th Parliament and then for some time in the 12th Parliament will be here with us, Duale, the MP for Garissa Town. We will be looking at, every time we talk about Parliament, we are pointing fingers and saying this Parliament of ours is a total letdown. He'll be here to respond to that. And then some Kenyans forget about, Bezos, that Virgin guy. We are sending a satellite.
Aito Branson.
Ule. Aito Branson.
He got knighted.
Yeah.
Yes. Sir.
Yes. Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We'll have some students from Kenyatta University who are sending a satellite to space.
Goody. Kenyatta University.
Satellite. Space.
Very good.
We are also joining the space race. Alongside India, China, Russia, USA, Kenya.
Satellite. But to be honest, there is a satellite station in Malindi called San Marino. You know this thing called satellite in space?
Yes.
Actually, yes, this is news now.
Yeah.
But we have been
having a launch pad there forever.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's a launch pad. So we'll hear. I mean, we know there are very many satellites that have been launched off that space. We want to understand these students. They are students of some engineering or other, mechatronic and something else.
No, but this is very good news.
Yeah. So one of them will be here this morning. They have won a grant from the government, the National Space Agency. Did you know we have something like that?
Yes.
We have NASA.
I did.
More than one.
I did, and it was accidental.
This is not the one that's broken up. This one is still in place.
Put together.
Yeah.
No, it's accidental because I met someone who told me they work for the space agency, and I asked them, so how long are they on leave in Kenya? He said, no, he works in Kenya. I said, no, NASA is not in Kenya. He told me, I don't work for NASA. So I sat up and said, let's start again. And I was told, we have a space agency.
Kenya Space Agency.
I said, oh. And he went further because he realized I was quite ignorant. We even have a unit in this country, an agency that deals with nuclear.
Yes.
And I was to meet somebody who chaired that. And they even gave me a card. My friend, front row.
This is Ochilo. Who is it? No, not Ochilo Yako. Who is it?
At that point in time, there was a certain professor called Professor Malo, M-A-L-O. Yes, but after that, that one. But at least I got to know the agency exists. And I even got to know somebody who headed it at that point in time.
Yes. Okay. So now, those are the conversations that we'll be having. But let's start with the one that we'll be having at 9. COVID and the numbers.
Let's do that, and let's also look at what the president said yesterday, that the curfew will be extended for a further 60 days, and that this is because of the new, or rather the rise in COVID infections and deaths. A high number of cases and deaths have been recorded in the last few weeks, and this is, of course, since the break of the deadly Delta variant. So he was giving a revision of the latest COVID measures, and this is from his office in Mombasa. He said that, he continues to hold the ban on public gatherings, all form of meetings, including political rallies. Interestingly enough, there should be one that's taking place in a couple of days. We don't know if that is going to be cancelled or not by ODM, and campaign meetings for impending elections by 2 months. So further 60 days, the ban holds on this. Places of worship
holds.
Yes, according to the president. Ban, rather, places of worship to strictly adhere to 1/3 rule for in-person worship. And even for that, you will continue to have protocols on hygiene and social distancing in accordance with the guidelines of the Interfaith Council.
Okay.
On the day the containment measures were revised, Nairobi County accounted for 512 of the 1,506 new COVID cases and 24 deaths recorded that happened over the last 1 month. It brings the country's total caseload to 224,400, and saying, look, we need to continue having the curfew in place from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. and try to keep things under wraps. Okay?
So who are we fooling, though?
Who's fooling who?
I mean, for how long are you going to keep up with this charade? So I told you from last year, Kenya is playing international PR in the fight against COVID. Just for us to be able to say, see, we tick all the boxes, give us the vaccines. We tick all the boxes, give us the aid that we need. Because the president spoke after meeting with ODM leader Raila Odinga, the leaders of One Kenya Alliance. Those ones were coming from their own meeting, where they had in-person meetings. Okay?
Yes.
Raila came from a large in-person meeting in Nakuru that was held in a huge tent. But we're talking about in-person meetings are still not being allowed.
So what are we talking about?
So what?
There is a consideration here. Since they're intent on having meetings.
Intense?
Well, it's clear that they keep having meetings.
Intense.
Yes, that one. Why don't they just make a concerted effort and vaccinate everyone?
And open up the economy.
Yes, so that we've ticked that box. So the discussion is a different one. We can talk about variants, but everyone has been vaccinated. Because what we are doing now is we are killing ourselves.
Yeah, remember your vaccine, it will be hard small.
Unajua nini?
Hard small. Because vaccines, onge. We don't have vaccines. We don't have access to vaccines. We have spent 10 billion shillings to buy vaccines. They have not come. We have done all our diplomatic 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have begged, cried,
we have begged
everything
for vaccines to come. Yeah, we're going to give you vaccines. You're our partners. They have not come.
Unajua, si lazima iwe AstraZeneca,
whatever it is,
ama Johnson.
All of them.
China,
No,
India,
we returned
doesn't matter.
Sputnik. What are you talking about?
Look.
Did we not return Sputnik?
It wasn't a donation.
It doesn't matter whether it was a
So
donation.
someone who was coming and selling it at 17,000 a dose.
A vaccine is a vaccine. Every other drug that people use in this country when they are well is bought. So there are people who can buy it. The generic versions are supposed to be cheaper because then ile mambo mingi, the name, the this, the that, which actually adds to the cost, isn't there. We understand all this. Now, we are going to witness a proliferation of gatherings. They are going to get huger. And we're also going to keep hearing the Minister of Health and the President telling us about safety rules
and blah,
fish cake and everything else.
You know, it's very quickly, it's not even very different from what's happening in different parts of the world. If you look at what's going on in the United States now, 3 teachers in one school, and actually Florida's second largest school district, have died of COVID in the last 2 days. And the governor of the state is still saying he's going to withhold payment from teachers, or rather from schools, who are insisting that pupils come to school with masks. Saying, why are you insisting that they come to school with masks? Meanwhile, 3 teachers, 1 school, died in 2 days.
You know, it is a bit... You said the governor.
He's the governor, yes.
I will only have this to say on that matter. It is sometimes refreshing to understand that there's a democracy even when it comes to idiocy. That it's
spread out.
It's
for
spread
everybody.
out. And it's no respect of your position and the geographical location you come from. No, it's liberally. How on earth?
For crying out loud.
How on earth? Yeah. But ours is infinitely worse, really.
Let's take that break. 18 after 6, live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay. So, apana jali. Apana jali. Let's just thank God that we are alive today and pray for those that have COVID-19 and are battling with COVID. That's all we can do. Try and avoid it ourselves. Take this break, take a look at the weather, and then we'll look at the newspaper headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 1 hash to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 14 degrees in Nairobi, mostly cloudy this morning. It'll go to highs of 23 today and lows of 13. 13 is what it is in Nyeri, highs of 22, lows of 12 today. 14 and mostly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 24. 22 will be the high in Eldoret. It's currently clear at 11. 17 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28. 26 will be the high in Kakamega, where it's partly cloudy at 16, and 24. And cloudy conditions throughout Mombasa at 29. That'll be the high, coming down to lows of 23. We'll see lows of 24 in Malindi. It's cloudy, going to highs of 29. 27 will be the high in Kampala. That's mostly clear at 18. It's 20 degrees and clear in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30 and lows of 20 today. 11 degrees and getting slightly warmer in Johannesburg. Highs of 21 and lows of 6. 29 will be the high in a rainy Lagos this morning at 25. 23 and mostly cloudy in Kinshasa. Highs of 29 and lows of 23. 22 degrees and a rainy Beijing out east. Highs of 24 and lows of 21. It's cloudy in Paris early morning at 18. Highs of 23 and lows of 14. It's also cloudy in London at 15 with highs of 22. It'll come back down to lows of 15. And finally in New York, it's still Wednesday night. Cloudy conditions at 26. Highs of 27 through the day and lows of 24.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
21 minutes after 6 in the morning.
Sky Tarish says, good morning, the team and Eric.
Lovely one. Lovely one, isn't it?
I'm telling you, I like it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, okay.
So the team greets you. Eric, greet the...
Good morning.
Timothy Gambawa Pasha says good morning this morning. Tune in from Thika Town. Abut Wata is also in. Chris Babake Chris also as well. Alice Munyao is tuned in this morning and says, I will try to be abnormal and see what comes out of me. You guys have woken up on a good tip this morning. Bay Darcy tuned in this morning and Layman Kapte as well. David Wasubukia is tuned in this morning, as is Kaka Elijah Momanyi. Shamangwai tuned in and says good morning from Nakuru. Rongai is tuned in this morning. Good morning, Matasia Tumirauka, Dania SpiceFM. Okay. And says that life is full of give and take. Give thanks and take nothing for granted. Mutua says, good morning. Let CT know that a vaccine is not a vaccine. Okay. Africa is playing catch-up in vaccinating her people. Each successive variant has proven to be slightly more vaccine evading than the last. The Delta variant continues evolving into a version that will evade vaccines. Okay. Quite a number of you tuned in this morning as well. Simon Onyango says loud and crystal clear in Kisumu Dala. Nyar Okech is also tuned in. F.A. Collins is tuned in as well. Lucy Tambo says tuned in from Kilifi County. In Gishugu, Washira says not wavering, just a period of sadness following dad's passing. Oh, Pole Sana Washira.
Pole.
Burhan Kunya tuned in from Uganda and Kaliro. And George Ogola says, just found out that SpiceFM morning talk show is part of my life. Allah. That's great to know. Jatelo Vic also is tuned in this morning. And Unavi Nkwensha. All right, tuned in from South Africa this morning. I'm sorry for butchering your name. I should do better. Bishogoro Omokaya is also tuned in this morning from Getari. And Kiworo says Buore is listening and says CT specifically. Okay. So many more of you online this morning.
Karibu sana.
CT. Today's proverb.
Right. A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
No animal.
Eric was awash with relief that there were no animals, leopards, tigers, snakes, and other snakes
what
that
does
were
he think
eating
food
themselves.
is?
You know.
Food is what exactly?
Boga. A healthy person
who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
Okay.
A healthy country that keeps begging for vaccines.
It's an insult to the generous. It's an insult to the generous donor.
Just a thought.
Okay.
But we'll expand on it as we move along.
Very good.
Rather, as we snake slowly into it.
Wow.
As we slither through the hours. All right, let's take a look at the headlines.
This one.
Starts.
Let me jump onto this one. Business Daily. MP's back push for 50-50 mandatory child keep. Remember, this has been a debate for the longest time, and our media houses never shy away from tabling a story, whether it's the high and mighty or the not so high and lowly, when it comes to the issues of child support. Now, what has happened is this. A bill was brought to the National Assembly, and the Labour and Social Welfare Committee, or the Committee on Labour and Social Welfare, have approved the amendment of the bill, okay, which places equal parental responsibility for children, including, read this, including those born out of wedlock or whose parents have divorced, or both, on the father and the mother.
Uh-huh.
Hey. So, What this means is this. There was a section of the Children's Act of 2001. Essentially what they were trying to do is to try and bring it to be in compliance with the Constitution. So, hurdle 1 overcome. So now, proceed and have children. But no, if this thing eventually sails through, 50-50, it'll be law. But you know something?
50-50 of what?
Child support.
Child support. The upkeep of the child.
Everything and all responsibility.
Of both parents.
Yes.
So that the current law apparently says, especially if a child is born out of wedlock, the first responsibility of custody goes to the mother. Now this one says everybody has the right to access this, and the court can then go and determine.
Yes, they
Peter
can.
Kaluma's laws are quite family oriented.
Aren't they just?
Peter Kaluma goes with bills that are just looking at, how to balance this institution and relationship called marriage or whatever.
Or whatever it is. And associations, arrangements, relationships.
Yeah. We should have him here. We've tried to invite him.
I think it's something that he can explain to us in great detail if he's here.
When his friend Adam Duale comes here, we'll ask him to put in a good word
for us so that he can come and expound on these matters.
So the good Mweshimiwa who's elusive can then agree to come.
Pick up his phone.
Yeah.
That's all right.
We'll agree to come here.
We'll keep trying.
Tell him we are family friendly.
We too are family friendly, just as yourself, sir.
Yes. The National Drought Emergency Management Authority and the Food and Agriculture Organization are saying we are in some difficult situation. As we all know, there are very many, 10 counties are facing drought and there's food shortage. They say if we don't receive enough rain in the next few weeks, this now shall become an emergency.
Oh, so it's not emergency status right now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
According to?
The National Drought Management Authority and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN.
That we are not facing...
We have drought and we are shuttling very fast towards a national emergency.
Okay. Now, what constitutes a national emergency? What needs to happen for us to know that we have a national emergency on our hands?
I do not know. Maybe the number of people then who face starvation.
But those ones we already know.
Because they say, because of what happened, the desert locust earlier, the short rains, the long rains did not rain long enough. The situation is the short rains failed in October last year, long rains failed in March this year. Some of the drought indicators Odor cited include lack of access to water, poor quality of pasture, high maize process, low milk production, malnutrition of children. All these things, as we combine them going forward, will lead us to that situation. We need 8.7 billion shillings for intervention activities such as food and safety nets, health and nutrition, provision of water, improvement of agriculture, peace and security, and drought coordination. Already, the government of Kenya, out of this 8.7 billion shillings, the government of Kenya has set aside 2 billion shillings to deal with this small matter of people going hungry.
Appears to me like
small
we've
matter
been in a
of there's
state
some people somewhere in some parts of this country, in just some 10 counties that are perennially having problems, giving them 2 billion shillings.
Hasn't there been a state of
themselves.
emergency for the longest time? I don't understand this business of saying that it will be an emergency situation if the rains don't come.
Maybe
It's
there's
been a
certain
state of
parameters that you
emergency
take, and then you
continuously
say,
for
now
some
we
time.
declare a state of emergency. And when you declare a state of emergency, now you go out and open up the bowl and say, we are seeking financial assistance.
So technically speaking, it's not an emergency unless it's declared.
No.
So if the facts on the ground indicate that all the boxes that enables a situation to be considered dire have been ticked, but before it's announced or before it's declared, it is not an emergency.
No. Because your development partners have nothing with which they have no framework to respond to. Declare an emergency, now there's a framework that's been opened. It's all these things of just...
Oh, by the way, I was just asking because I understand it. You know, one of the things that is actually happening right now in the world of donor funding, especially with health, for instance, PEPFAR, as it was known, the major donor for HIV-related issues around the globe for the longest time and one of the largest contributors to global health issues, is, as it was known, is coming to an end. Remember, it was an emergency fund, and we're heading towards 20 years of its existence. An emergency cannot last for 20 years. Not really. Because
especially Americans, anything that goes beyond 20.
Yeah, because you start asking, so where's the emergency here? And in all honesty, the understanding was, after a while, the various nations that were receiving the help would have acquired sufficient wherewithal to be able to attend to the needs of their people.
Yeah, flatten the curve and manage.
Precisely. But yes, emergency.
I'm talking about that because, you see, that is a story that's been given a column on page 3 of the Standard. Yep. And it's not the first time that we are talking about these 10 counties that are facing serious issues of pasture, lack of water, lack of food, and all. But we're not hearing much coming from the top leadership of the country. Top leadership of the country, I'm talking about the president, his deputy, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the leadership of the National Assembly, of the Senate, the opposition leadership in the country, starting from the official opposition leader. Well, there is no official opposition leader, but the leader of the largest opposition party, through the other small opposition parties. None of them is talking about this. It's not important. It's about coalitions. It's about agreeing about next year. That's all that matters to them.
When I tell you that they tell you how they feel about you, the citizenry, they tell you every day. They don't necessarily tell you, I am not concerned about you. But the business that they're paying attention to should be very then clear to you how they consider these things. Believe it. And then make decisions thereafter.
Hey. So let's take this break. 27 minutes to 7 o'clock, right? Time for us to take a break, take a look at the traffic, and then more headlines in the papers.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. You know, Jeshi la Wokovu.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room.
All right, well,
The
you know,
only
guys,
way to
thousands of
start
innocent lives every day are lost because of dealing with the devastating effects of crashes. Majority of these are because, you know, human-related behavior, speeding, overlapping, drunk driving, dangerous overtaking, driving while texting, driving, failure to use your seatbelts, lack of safety gear such as helmets, you know, and just major misbehavior on the roads. Now, we're looking at addressing these challenges presented on our roads on a daily basis and calling on every single road user today, every day, to play their part in everything, playing their part knowing that everything can change in a split second. So can you be careful? Can you use the proper gear? Can you be focused when you're driving? Can you make sure that everybody is doing their part? Let's do our part on the roads every day. Usalama Barabani starts with you. Fika Salama. And it's a message brought to you by the NTSA and the European Union. All right, what's happening on our roads this morning? Looking at that situation on Mombasa Road already starting to build up and quite something as we headed out into the city. Inbound also a little bit of a hiccup here and there, but it will not be too terrible, at least not at the moment. We'll keep an eye on things and see how they open up. It's already started to build up on Thika Road, however, at the junction, Kiambu Road, Muthaiga Square, traffic is already hot and heavy there, but it doesn't stretch too far back just yet. We're also seeing traffic building up right around the roundabout at the T-Mall. Langata Road seems to be clear up until that point. Industrial area looking good, at least for now. And Coming out of Westerns doesn't look too bad. Uhuru Highway then from the roundabout out towards Western, in and outbound, is already starting to build up. It's still early pickings. Let's see what happens in a short while. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Headlines.
Okay, so it seems like the National Assembly is quite busy. Past offenders could have their criminal records expunged after the 5th year of committing an offence if MPs approve a petition tabled in the National Assembly yesterday. The Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, chaired by Kangema lawmaker Muthui Kigano, is handling the petition by a section of the public led by Susan Kachango. The petitioners argue that other jurisdictions expunge misdemeanors and non-violent records from an offender's record, citing the UK and the US state of Indiana. They further want Parliament to abolish the requirement by employers that job seekers present police clearance certificate, better known as a certificate of good conduct. According to Deputy Speaker Moses Chaboy, the requirement by employers for job seekers to produce police clearance certificates is not a statutory requirement, but one which infringes on their constitutional rights to privacy, since it exposes their past criminal records. And we're saying, look, get rid of this. If they're after 5 years, forget about it. The petitioners argue that a job seeker may have been an ignorant minor when they committed a crime, and others may have been framed. Kachango regretted that job seekers with criminal records are disqualified with no attention paid to their academic and other qualifications. The petitioners are convinced that employing persons with criminal records can demonstrate diversity, inclusion, and social responsibility and act as an avenue for their rehabilitation, thereby reducing the likelihood of the repetition of offences.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. So 5 years, if you've been jailed and you've come out of prison, and 5 years afterwards, or is it what? 5 years?
In the 5th year of after, right? From the 5th year after.
Yeah. Yes, expunge it. I agree with that. So I mean, there's no need of walking around with that sword over your head forever. For just because you committed an offense maybe at the age of 20, and even at the age of 40 you shall forever be tagged as
a criminal, basically,
and then you don't have a certificate of good conduct. No,
and you will never be able to get one based on that.
Good conduct should be based on current. If I didn't have good conduct last year, it doesn't mean that I don't have good conduct today.
Very true, because a punitive system that doesn't take into consideration restitution and doesn't consider that there is a possibility, a very large possibility, that somebody given an option or a second option might actually have changed.
True. Might have changed. True.
Yes.
So I like that.
I really like this as well.
I like that move. Are you reading the paper with us? If you have a telecom line, just remember to dial *550*1#. And you get to access the Standard e-paper for 20 shillings daily. If you want the Nairobian, it's *550*2# for 20 bob daily. And if you want the daily newspaper pullouts from the Standard, it's *550*3# on your telecom line. This ones will cost you 5 shillings daily. Money deducted from your airtime on a daily basis. 20 bob for the paper, 20 bob for the Nairobian, 5 shillings for the pullout. Today's pullout is real estate. It's Thursday. There's an interesting story here. Inside Nairobi firm's bloody fight for control of 17 billion shillings piece of land. Now, there's a land, you've been talking about these land buying companies, huh?
Yep.
There's a land buying company called Kiambu Dandora Farmers Company Limited. Okay? This company, in 1966, says it bought land from a gentleman called Khan Nawaz Abbas and another one called Mehdi Khan. What is this land? It's 818 acres of land in Nairobi. 818 acres.
A lot of land.
This is covering Umoja 1, Umoja 2, Komarok, Kariobangi Civil Servant, Kariobangi Light Industries, Steel Structures, Coca-Cola, New KCC, Emco Suites, Mama Lucy Hospital Estate, Nasra Estate, and others.
Okay.
Basically, they own Nairobi.
In short.
Yes. The real owners of Nairobi, they've been here, they've been saying, look, this is our land. Okay? Now, what happened is that in 1974, the government compulsorily acquired the farm's land amid the legal tussle between it and Dandora Housing Company in 1972. So there's been a whole issue of who owns this land, and then this company and its directors seeking compensation for the land, and it's in billions of shillings. They've been in court. Then, as happens with these kind of organizations, the leadership got into its own tussles. The snake started eating fellow snake. In 2005, Mr. Stephen Mugo, who was the chair of the Kiambu Dandora Farmers Company Limited, was shot dead in Kibra. The killer is said to have ordered Mugo out of his car at gunpoint. When Mugo emerged, the gunman held him by the coat and asked him in Kiswahili, "Mbona unatusumbua?" Mugo, witnesses recalled, fearlessly replied in the same language, "Fanya ile kitu umekuja kufanya." And the man fanyad.
Wow.
Pressed the trigger, shot Mugo on the head, dropped him right there, went away. It's a vicious fight with homeowners and investors over ownership of these 818 acres in Eastlands, Nairobi. Members of the land buying outfit with offices in Kayole Estate are also at war among themselves. So they've been in court. They have people who are affected in these pieces of land have gone to court saying, please, court, bar these people from evicting me from this piece of land. I bought it nicely. It's an interesting story that you can go and read in the Standard today.
Wow.
You know, of interest, there are three issues that you brought up here. This never-ending saga of claims for compensation from the government, and the long list of people, some who've been awarded by court, who are owed compensation by the government. And also interesting, the non-payment of these claims that they have. 1. 2, the lengths to which people will go to amass wealth. The degree, total disregard for anything else that you may think of. Because if I look at land buying companies, the one thread that connects all of them is just the number of people who get killed as a result of the issues around these land issues.
Unfortunately.
There's one Boy committee. You got the impression that the entire board had been killed.
Another one, Kihumwere.
Yes.
Same.
What happens? What are these disagreements that have to end in death? Clearly, some people feel shortchanged. Or some people feel that if they got rid of others, then they might...
they stand the chance. I think all of it starts with people thinking that they can steal from the others, from their partners.
And they want to get rid of the impediment, this individual who is hindering them from doing what they want to do. But you know, actually, yes. It's
greed.
It is greed.
I think you've gotten the heart of the
You know,
matter.
you want more. Everybody wants more. And then the levels to which you're willing to go to have this more seems unimaginable by many. But as it becomes something that you would be willing to practice, then it becomes normal.
My goodness.
Very normal to be able to say, go take this person's life in order for us to get more.
Just like that.
So, the court has quashed the order on public gatherings issued in October. All right. The High Court has ruled that the National Security Advisory Committee has no powers to order the police on how to conduct its duties. This is after the High Court quashed the directive by the NSAC after finding that the top security organ is not part of the police service. According to Justice Anthony Mrima, the committee and the Interior Ministry are independent offices, just as the National Police Service Commission, and therefore cannot issue orders to the latter. In sum, the directives issued by the committee on the 7th of October 2020 and ratified by the Cabinet on the next day are unconstitutional, ineffective and void for directing law enforcement agencies on how to discharge their duties. Mrima also issued orders prohibiting Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutiambai from receiving and implementing directives from the committee. An order is hereby issued calling into this court for quashing the entire directives by the National Security Committee made on October 7th, 2020 and ratified by Cabinet on the 8th. The judge was of the view that the ban was blanket and even curtailed the right to worship. He was of the view that it was couched in a way that the police could enforce unlawful orders. The Order Act applies to all public meetings. It does not make any exception at all. Therefore, public meetings in churches and mosques are banned since churches and mosques are public places. The section is therefore an affront to several constitutional rights and fundamental freedoms. The judge dismissed the Attorney General's argument that the committee is part of the presidency, noting that the Constitution is precise that people's power can only be implemented through the executive, judiciary, parliament, and devolved governments. He was of the view that counties have their own ways of enforcing COVID-19 regulations, and which the police are part of.
Many things I didn't understand there. So first, is the judge quashing that particular order, or has that set a precedence and said then everything else that comes after that is similarly unlawful? Second, is it the fact that the National Security whatever committee, what's it called?
National Security Advisory Committee
is involved? Because it's not the one that gazetted the order. The order must have been gazetted by the minister in charge of the Interior, who is mandated by law to do this. So is it the involvement of the Security Advisory Committee that we have a problem with? Or is it the order at all in general?
The order itself, it said...
Because it offends the other freedoms that have been there.
That are set aside by the
Constitution. You have freedom of worship. Does worship necessarily mean meeting together? You define your own worship. If worship means that we meet together naked, that is our right.
Yes, but in this case, worship assuming that you're meeting in a particular place, many people at a particular time for a period.
Yeah, but it just barred you from meeting. It didn't bar you from worshiping.
Yeah, well, this is what we're talking about: public meetings in churches and mosques.
Yeah,
public meetings.
Public meetings in churches and mosques. That was the order, and the judge is saying that offends the freedom of worship.
Yes,
as enshrined in the Constitution.
Does COVID know about that freedom?
We must ask her.
You know,
COVID needs to go through civic education to understand that we have a constitution.
You know, I can actually understand somebody stating the reality of the law as they understand it. I can understand all that. But the law, if it isn't applied to a living, live, real life, immediate situation, then,
it becomes difficult. Okay, so this particular case, so this judgment, rather the judgment on this case, does not apply to the directives ordered by the president on COVID-19. This particular case was filed by the LSK, and they had claimed that the resolution by this advisory committee was targeting Deputy President William Ruto and his allies, while allowing the president and his side to continue with their public meetings. That is why the LSK went to court in the first place. On one hand, you allow a meeting that was scheduled to be presided over by the Deputy President in Mumias, while on the other hand, you allow similar meetings convened by the President and his former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, to proceed, according to the President, Nelson Havi. They argue that the ban on meetings in order to contain political weaponization of public gatherings was illegal, discriminative, and targeted certain individuals.
Oh, so it's a selective application of the order.
Yes.
My position still hasn't changed.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why it hasn't changed. I am often confused by legal matters until somebody who understands it better than I do explains it to me. Now, if I read a headline and then read the first paragraph and it speaks or it communicates a message of that nature, what do you think I'm going to interpret? And even if I read the entire article, what do you think I am going to... Remember, declarations by the court are second to only God speaking to you. Somebody say, court ilisema.
Bueno.
It was stated in court. But there's something that I find a little disturbing. This is in the Star. The Star report.
Shall we take a quick break?
Let's take that quick break then.
Okay.
Come back
Okay.
and see what I
A
find disturbing.
quick break. Here it comes, and then we look at the other headline. Good morning.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero. In this,
So
room
what
here.
is that?
A very Swiss temperature.
The interesting story that I'm speaking about, there are two actually. One is a tale of misery. That's on page 3. 10 victims of deadly bootleg liquor mourned in Nakuru.
Okay.
We are back to that story again. 10 people died after drinking toxic liquor were mourned on Wednesday in Hodi Hodi village. This in Nakuru, okay? Now, this was in a place called Kabatini, okay? It's in Nakuru County. Now, they all consumed, these 10 consumed alcohol on August the 10th and died as a result of it. Now, I had assumed that one of the things that we would see an end to is a story such as this one. Remember, it started off with people going blind.
Yep.
People, yes. Now, these are stories that are highlighted in the media. Now, imagine the number of people who are maimed, people who suffer irreparable damage, but the story is never told. But why is it that there's such a proliferation of illicit alcohol? Because it's cheap. And why do so many people turn to alcohol? We are talking about the violence that we've been seeing, the escalation of it. Now, this one here is violence directly committed to your own body and then to your family. The never-ending saga of the mental health situation of the country. That really is it. That's what I'm mentioning. Now, the second one is on page 2, headline, Cream of KSC to study medicine and engineering. An analysis by the Star revealed that all the top 15 performers in 2020 KCSE examination will join medicine and engineering courses. My problem is right there.
Yeah.
Why?
It's right there because somewhere along the line, those who advise students and help them understand what they can do with their lives focus on these two courses as being the courses that anybody who has a high aptitude for academia or academic work should focus on.
Yeah.
Now, there is the issue of, is there a market for doctors? Yes, there is. Is there a market for engineers? Yes, there is. Depending on, it doesn't really matter. However, there are very many other relevant courses, whether it's in the humanities or what you call basic social sciences, whether it's in environment. All these areas of our lives also need these top brains. Now, are we to say that all these people who are going to study medicine and engineering, and by the way, these courses also have dropouts. People start, somewhere along the line, they figure, this thing.
Not for me.
Yes. You study medicine, year 1, you come across a cadaver. No, this one, I'm not coping with this. So what am I saying? I am saying one ought to see an indication of a story that talks about the top 15 students in the country and the various courses that they have taken. Not that the two courses, nothing wrong with engineering, nothing wrong with medicine, wonderful courses. However, there are other courses that young people can also focus on and have equal importance.
But what did Dr. Wahome tell us when we were talking about this just last week with this placement and the selection of courses? You find that there's a heavy influence that comes from parents in terms of what the expectations are for their children when they're selecting these courses, knowing that your child is bright or in the pack. You expect them to take these courses.
It's a societal expectation.
Yes.
Starting all the way from primary school, as you grow up, you see, look at all the students who are interviewed after performing very well in KCPE. What do they want to do?
I want to be a doctor.
All these things.
And where do they get those ideas from?
Parents.
from the society, from all of us, from watching the previous student saying, I want to be a doctor.
Right.
As you're watching your standard, the one who has performed well in standard 10 saying, I want to be a doctor, the one who has performed well in Form 4 saying, I want to be a doctor, and then seeing that they are being admitted into medicine courses, even you, as you're growing up in Standard 5, Standard 6, Standard 7, Standard 8, and you're performing very well, you clearly have seen, well, God ordained me with a sharp brain, so he wants me to be a doctor.
He too must want me to be a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, I've had the joy of coming across 2 or 3 people who actually started these courses that we've mentioned here. And after first year, they just said no. They didn't, they're not disqualified, they just said no, this is not what I want to do. And they changed and went to something else. And they have really excelled in that something else that they did.
But then do you know the stories also of parents who say to their children that if you don't continue in this course, we'll cut you off.
Yep.
We will not continue supporting you if you don't do this thing that we want you to do. There are many, many like that.
And many parents are doing that thinking that they're helping the child.
They're not.
Because they're looking at this child and thinking, you are losing it. Huh? And my job as a parent is to guide you and to nurture you. I can see your potential. You are sharp. You can hack being a doctor. So you should just be a doctor. Study medicine. Do you know what this life is all about? As you want to be what? To be making television sets. And not TV set electronically, but set backdrops in a TV
Not
scene.
even TV sets.
That's what you want to be doing.
You're going to be repairing radios.
Yeah. That's what you want to be doing.
No.
Do you want to be a tailor, a designer?
You know the fundamental...
A comedian.
Where do we draw the line, Eric, between the desire of parents to live vicariously through the children, and when is it that the parents actually are looking at the welfare of the child from an informed position? Because a lot of the times it's not that well informed.
It's I think it's just our socialization. Until the day we start looking at others and seeing, well, yes, there's a future here. There's a future in this career. There's a future in this line. Then we will always be here. Because somebody looks at it, hey, surely, you want to be a comedian.
That's funny.
You want to go to university and study music, and you got an A.
Actually, there are certain careers that were given a bad name, and that bad name hasn't actually left.
Yep.
The tag has stuck.
It is the others.
Yes,
and that's it. It is the others. So you score an A, you join the elite.
And the elite.
And then if you don't score an A, now you join the
And
others.
elitism has to do with specific courses.
Yes. You got a C plus and above, you go to university. You are elite now. You got a C below C plus. Others.
Village Polytechnic.
Yeah. Ngoja tusikie kama ile time watafungua nini ya kuingia jeshi. Yeah. Tuongelesha mkubwa wa jeshi uone kama
we'll talk to your cousin so and so.
Yeah.
Who's in administration police.
Yes.
So that we can find out
what to do.
And if you seem to be a bit religious, why don't we talk to your uncle who's a pastor?
Yes.
He knows of a course that you can take at some Bible college.
Okay, in the next hour we'll be talking to an engineering student. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Assetto. The High Court has declared the order by the government last year restricting public gatherings and processions to curb COVID-19 as illegal and unconstitutional. This comes after the Law Society of Kenya moved to court last year to challenge the directive. The court also issued an order restraining Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai or any officer from taking directives from the said National Security Advisory Committee. Now, Deputy President William Ruto said Kenyans are united and only have problems with the kind of economic approach used in the country. Speaking at his current residence when he hosted more than 600 political aspirants from Nairobi County, the DP said that Kenyans are united. Hitting out at ODM leader Raila Odinga, Ruto said the handshake was brought after some politicians claimed that there was a problem with Kenyans, which was to be solved through the handshake.
Jamaa mwingine anatuambia ati kuna shida kati ya Mkenya mmoja na Mkenya mwingine. They brought us the handshake. But what happened? We destroyed Jubilee, the ruling party. It destroyed NASA. It sabotaged the Big Four plan. It created a big charade called BBI.
Attorney Paul Gicheru's first pre-trial status conference has been scheduled for September 17th. The agenda for the conference was included in the order released by the International Criminal Court yesterday. According to the order, all parties will have to provide submissions on the agenda by September 10th. Gicheru surrendered before the ICC last year following an arrest warrant issued by the Hague-based court of allegations of witness interference in Deputy President William Ruto's case. Now, the Court of Appeal's decision tomorrow on the BBI will determine the direction of the ongoing talks between President Uhuru Kenyatta, ODM leader Raila Odinga and the One Kenya Alliance principals. The talks are expected to resume after the decision tomorrow. Odinga has since stated that he will accept the outcome of the case whichever way it goes.
Alafu sasa siku ya Ijumaa tutangoja mahakama iongee. Sawa sawa? Sawa sawa? Wakiongea vizuri, sawa. Wakiongea vibaya, vile sawa. Sawa sawa? Lakini mwenendo yetu itaendelea. Sawa sawa? Unaelewa vizuri? Maana yake unasema nobody can.
The trial of the US R&B singer R. Kelly began at a court in Brooklyn, New York. The star is accused of racketeering, sexual abuse and bribery, charges which he has repeatedly denied. Some of the allegations made against R. Kelly date back more than 20 years ago. If he is convicted on all counts, he could be sentenced to several decades in prison. R. Kelly faces charges that he was the ringleader of a 2-decade scheme where he recruited women and underage girls for sex. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Speaking of lockdowns, it looks like that's what's going on Mombasa Road this morning. Quite the mess all the way from the Weybridge now up Mlolongo. Likely that it'll go beyond that in a short while. So if you're getting onto Mombasa Road today and you're able to take that turn off, use the ICD route, there's an option for you then to connect with the Southern Bypass or then come round and connect at General Motors onto Mombasa Road. But it's looking quite sticky already. It's also building up on Langata Road a lot further than what we saw earlier. We're also seeing industrial area is picking up some, and Jogo Road as well, just past the Makadara train station, headed out then towards Landis Road. Pockets of traffic there as you're getting into the city centre. We're also seeing some traffic that's building up as well on Thika Road around Muthui, connecting with the Pangani underpass. This one we have to watch out for because it looks like it's going to continue getting heavier and heavier. Coming out of Westerns as well, everybody's using Muthui Road. We know why, so let's just be careful there. In and outbound on Uhuru Highway all the way through to the city continues to be a thing. Let's keep an eye out for this. Talk to us, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
5 after 7, and we are not relenting on this matter because we need this whole situation of the construction of the expressway and all the nonsense that it has brought to road users to be addressed. All the way from Lolongo, and that's Mombasa Road, into Uhuru Highway, into Chiromo Road, into Wayaki Way. Chaos throughout the day because there's a contractor on site and they do not have adequate alternatives, thereby causing a lot of traffic, serious gridlock. like we're seeing in Mulongo this morning. So yes, if you're stuck in that traffic and you'd like people to know that you are, the person that ought to know that you're stuck in that traffic and ought to take action is the Cabinet Secretary for Road, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, James Macharia. Address him on Twitter at James Macharia _ at James Macharia _ So tweet, tag him, and you can also tag us at SpiceFMKE. Bwana Muga, the proverb.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer. Does not take into consideration that the rains may have failed, that the livestock may have been decimated by drought, and that is the conditions that led them to beg.
He could have begged to be given work to earn the food instead of begging for the food. I'm waiting for a retort. See, come back.
No, just beg for food. Give them food, bwana.
Some people.
Give me work so that I can... It's okay. You give me food first, then I have the energy. Then now tomorrow we'll discuss work.
When I've come with a full belly, then I can ask you, okay, now that you fed me, thank you very much. How about some work to do?
Give me the money, then I will fill in the application form. Right?
Yes.
All right.
Mambo ya kulima, wachana na wakulima. Ambia serikali kupatia kasi.
Do you recall there was a lady who was reported as saying that, this issue of the loans that keep coming in, she doesn't want the government to do anything for her. She's done the maths. Apewe yake. Let her just be given her share. She
will repay.
She knows how many Kenyans there are. Her share is this amount. Can she be given hers? And she can decide what to do
I'll never
with it.
complain again.
Since she's going to be paying for it anyway, she can make arrangements to pay whatever is required from her, but let her be given hers directly.
Right. We have a very important person in the studio with us this morning. He's a person who's received a head of state commendation, recognized by the president. Does the president know you?
No, actually, the president doesn't know me.
The president personally knows Fidel Makati.
You asked that question as though you know the president knows you.
Maybe the president doesn't know me.
So we're in the same boat. Okay, boatmate, carry on.
But Fidel, head of state commendation, Fidel Makati, he just graduated from Kenyatta University. What did you graduate in?
Electrical electronics engineering.
Electro and electronics.
Electrical and electronic engineering.
Electrical and
electronic.
Okay.
Engineering.
All right. The electricity somewhere. Now, is it possible to explain electrical
and electronic
difference?
Okay. Electrical deals with higher power and voltage than electronic. So electronic, like the gadgets we have, like phones, computers, they deal with the little current, lower currents and voltages. The electrical now is these high voltage transmissions, machines, all this equipment that consume a lot of power.
The one that can kill you.
Actually, I've got it. It's like from a religious perspective. Electrical, God. Electronic, pastors, priests, whatever. Okay, got it.
So by the time it's coming from God direct, then at the pastor's priest is coming in lower voltage.
Those are the gadgets.
To you guys, for you to understand what's going on.
Yes. Got it.
Okay. You get it now?
No, I've got, that one, it has seeped in, found a home.
Mr. HSC here is a team leader, and he leads a team of other engineering and other students from KU who are doing some big stuff. Now, they got some grant. They won a grant of 1 million shillings from the Kenya Space Agency. We were talking about Kenya Space Agency to develop some satellite. He'll tell us the size of that satellite and all. But what they want to do is to address that whole issue of your proverb today. The one I'm bringing, the angle that I'm bringing. Food insecurity because of very many things in agriculture. Okay? Agricultural disasters happen and we need to predict. For us to predict, we need to have some eye up there in the sky that looks and tells us, kitaumana. And then it tells us, avoid it by doing this, or address it and mitigate it by doing this and the other. So this gentleman and his colleagues, and he'll tell us about them, they have won a grant to develop a satellite and take it up there, and then it will sort us out. Have I said it correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see? Yes. So tell us about your group. It's called what? The KU Cube.
Yeah.
Okay.
So late last year, we saw a proposal from, it's actually my dean who forwarded me a proposal, Dr. Mambo, proposal by KSA, Kenya Space Agency, for universities to apply to be given research grants that deals with like capacity building for space programs. So part of what we did, we thought about, because we had just finished building the ventilator, the Tiba ventilator. So there was a lot of free time and a lot of knowledge and a lot of, adrenaline to do other stuff. So what we did is so I sat down and said, part of what engineering is supposed to do is to solve the problems that engineers basically are people who apply knowledge of science to kind of make people's life easy.
I would tell that to those guys at Kenha. Go on.
So he said, what is one of the most, so people were talking about fourth industrial revolution and all these technologies, 5G, what. But in Africa, that thing, it looks very futuristic. So we said, but the space, because given that in the 70s, the space was actually, when guys were doing the space race, actually led to a lot of innovations in America, Russia, and even China, all those countries. So we said, why don't we, first of all, show that we can use space to at least solve a problem which affects one of the Kenya's greatest backbone, which is agriculture. And we said, early 2020, there was this locust invasion in the country, and the farmers kind of did not have eyes, so they just had to wait for the locusts to reach them. So said, what if we gave them a way whereby they will know that this is a migration pattern of the locust? So by this and this day, it might reach my place, let's say, on Tuesday next year, or next week rather. So they'll prepare on time and see how they're going to address that problem, rather than just waiting to see if it's tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. So we did a proposal. We were 5 students initially. That was 2 from electrical engineering and 3 from geography department, because they kind of deal with GIS, that is geographic information system, that is, and they deal with the patterns and those surveys. Then after doing the proposal, luckily enough, we were able to convince Kenya Space Agency, and we were awarded the grant. So the grant basically is for, when we got the grant, we said, why don't we make it more interesting? Because the goal of the proposal was actually to have an home ground solution, so whereby we have at least most parts of the satellite is developed in the country. So we said, why don't we expand this to include even other engineering disciplines in the School of Engineering? That's when now we brought in aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers, biomedical engineers, students, that is. So together we also got a mentor who's Dr. Mongera, who's a space expert, aerospace engineer.
We offer space engineering courses in the country?
Yeah, we have aerospace engineering in Kenyatta University.
Remember Dr. Mongera that we hosted here, the chairman of the
Mechanical
Youth
Engineering
Enterprise Development Fund. And he's there in mechanical engineering.
I remember him very well.
And he has a PhD in going to space.
He has a PhD in NASA.
Yes. Wow. Go on.
So part of the things I like is the passion I have is I see engineering as a tool to solve problems in society. That's why anytime there's a problem, I think, what can we do with what can I do with what I know? So when I brought together the team, the main idea was we make sure that 90% of these satellite components are built locally. So we can show Kenya, 1, has the capacity, 2, has the knowledge. Because we believe that through space exploration, other technologies will easily follow. Because most of the technologies in the 70s were actually from space, from the space program the countries used to have. So that's how we came up with KU Cube, and we developed most of the things locally, including circuit boards, operating system, and even you see how we design the structure. We have even written made in Kenya, so that in case there are aliens up there, they will find the satellite and see, Kenyans also can make something. Yeah.
Do I get the distinct impression that you believe that they are aliens?
No. I didn't say I believe. Say in case. It's only that, even other astronauts, in case it's found or something, they see it's made in Kenya.
Right.
It's just a pride
But there's a likelihood that there are aliens up there.
Depends on what you believe.
That satellite will tell us.
Well, CT, it's possible that you could take a trip and, just find out.
Go and
I'm sure we
explore
can
for
talk to
yourself.
them and see if they can, But I do have, even as you're talking about this, Fidel. So one thing that you said I think is critical in all of this is that there are solutions to a lot of the problems that we are facing today, whether that is data, information, etc., etc. We're not able to get to these solutions because we're not using the information that we have. So now you're looking at this, and then you mentioned locust, and I remember how terrible it was because you didn't really know what was coming until it actually arrived. What are other areas that you see this particular exploration that you're talking about can actually seek to solve, or at least give information towards solving other problems in this country? Then before I go to the next.
Okay, part of, so the satellite has two payloads. Payload is basically, let me just put it in simple terms, functionalities. From the design constraint we were given by the Kenyan Space Agency, and also from the constraint of weight. So we are supposed to build 1 kg only. So part of the thing was it can take images and patterns of, do a survey images, high-level images, so to be analyzed in the ground station that is back on the planet. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we have what we call something like relay satellite. So basically what it does is that you can send a signal to it, and the signal can be, a satellite has a big geographical coverage. Mm-hmm. So we call it big footprint. So part of what we said is that, if you want right now to control a drone, it has to be in the line of sight. Mm-hmm. You have to be, you can see it because you're using ground station, which is RC, which is you are handheld. Mm-hmm. So it has to be the visibility where you can. But now if you have a satellite, you can control a drone from here, just like how Americans can do a drone they can control a drone all the way to Somalia because they have a satellite to map it. So that is part of the functionality we put on the satellite. This is to enable at least, UAV industry, when we spy it, we enable guys to be able to connect to it, and also response, like things like, Rwandans are doing medical delivery with drones. So drones can really cause a lot of spy in the country. Mm. Another area is IoT, Internet of Things. So if you have a place whereby there's a huge coverage, you can actually be having sensors receiving, sending data to the satellite, and ground stations receiving. So it basically means you can have a farm in Western Kenya and you're in Nairobi, and you're actually monitoring your farm with ease. There's no need of all these connections, running cables, and doing that. Mm-hmm. So that is just, we did it in a very small scale because of the constraints we were given by Kenya Space Agency, which is constraint of weight, power, and all those things. Mm-hmm. But if we can prove and show that you can actually control a drone from here to Western Kenya, and you can actually send sensors, even if they are small signals, it shows that the industry, we can really benefit from this kind of technologies. So there's really no need to, there is a lot of things we'll be able to show, as in there are a lot of problems we can be able to solve as a country with technology.
Right.
But something that comes to mind, according to people who understand these things infinitely better than I do, the Union of Concerned Scientists, for instance, who deal with such matters, according to them, there are 6,542 satellites orbiting around this planet. Okay? Of these, only 3,372 are active. The rest are not. And these satellites range from the scientific satellites. Put it this way, they cover the range of literally everything that you have mentioned. What stops us from asking somebody to position their satellite so that we can also benefit from it? Why must we build our own and then send it into space when there are already people who are doing this very same thing that we're saying? And some of those satellites even focus not only on this continent, but even on this country.
So I think that's a good question, and I'll answer it this way and say, first of all, you see, the main essence of developing the satellite was a research. So this is, that process of developing a satellite will actually inspire, it's called renaissance, rebirth of knowledge in the country, because guys will say, okay, how do we do this? How do we get it best like these other guys? So through that research, there are a lot of things which will come up. Not only satellite, but other technologies will be developed. For example, if we start manufacturing space-grade motherboards here, there will need to be industries in Kenya which are developing this kind of motherboards. You see, that is a form of employment and also research. Mm-hmm. So we have that uniqueness whereby it's locally developed and made. So it also means that our space programs will be part of the university curriculum and all those things. There'll be research centers in our universities. So rather than just hiring a satellite by somebody to be used for such an instance. Number two is the issue of, there's something called data. You see, if we own our own satellite, it means the data is ours. Everything, we have control over everything. Rather than if we have, let's say we're using one of SpaceX satellite, it means that also guys in SpaceX can actually access what we have because we're actually getting from them.
When you were starting to do this research, after seeing the call for applications by the space agency, you must have done a lot of research and seen who else in Kenya has done this kind of work. How many people or how many organizations, how many students from Kenya have done this and sent a satellite to space?
So I think that's a good question. So the first people to attempt was the University of Nairobi, where they partnered with some other guys in abroad to do a satellite. It's called Kibokiv, and they launched it some time back. So theirs was mostly a telemetry satellite, so just sending data down and not images, so just temperature, humidity and stuff. So that's what they did. And also during there's also other people, they're called the Omarichet. They are also developing their nano satellite. So also, so those are the people we found that they did. But now as we were coming up in a different angle whereby we have, it's just like he said earlier that it's not necessarily being given the fish, but being taught how to fish. So necessarily we have, that means that we have our approach is that why don't we develop this capacity here? So if we can show, the issue is showing. So it can be done here 90%. It means that companies, maybe private, maybe government, will start coming up saying, okay, we offer satellite solutions, we offer. So that is our value we are bringing on board.
Yeah. When we started using mobile phones, we started with those giant SIM cards. And then we went to micro SIM card, cut a little bit. Then we went to the nano SIM card, which is a small thing that now we use on our mobile phones. Now, yours is a nano satellite. That means it's very small, isn't it?
Yeah.
How small is it?
And how much does it weigh?
So 1 kg at most. That is the constraint we were given. And the size is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So it's a cube. That's why it's called KU cube. So 10 by 10 by 10 and a maximum of 1 kg. So that is how it is. The reason for this is because it's very expensive to send objects up there. So you actually charge per weight and size. So say what they had in mind.
Who? The landlord of space?
No, the guys who give you the vehicle. So you see, you have to put in top of a rocket before you can send it up there. So that is expensive. So what the reason why they give constraint of size and weight is because of this. So that when they are sending, let's say they want to send, let's say KU cube to space, they can combine it with other satellites which are the same size. So to save on, kind of like you use a matatu rather than using a personal transport, so you can save on cost.
It's like putting them in one container and then loading them onto a ship.
I'm interested in the mechanics of this now. So now, So obviously to be able to gauge things like, geographical patterns, weather patterns, movement of livestock and things like that, even when we're talking about like the locust issue, which I thought was very, very interesting. So what happens? Like, break it down. What happens? So this satellite piggybacks on a rocket, goes out into space. What happens there? How long is it there? And then right here, down here, what are you then able to read? For example, on this particular one that you're producing, what are you producing it for specifically? And then what is the process that happens now when it is up there?
That's an interesting question. So after we launch it, our satellite is called a LEO, that is a lower Earth orbit satellite. So basically, it's supposed to be 200 kilometers from the Earth's surface. So I don't know if I should go deep, but the orbit itself is elliptical. So what it does is that it revolves around the Earth in an elliptical orbit. So it's like an oval orbit. So basically, the satellite has a camera on it, low resolution camera. The reason why it's low is so that we can save on one, bandwidth of sending data images. Number two is also power. So what happens is that when it's up there, we are making sure that it faces the ground by using attitude control mechanism. We're using passive one. which we are using permanent magnet, because in space there is let's say no friction because there's no air.
Right.
So what the magnetic force of the Earth is very powerful there. So we are using other magnets kind of to align it so that it always faces down. So the images, the satellite, the camera always faces down. So the images sent are always right angled to the ground. Then, so what happens is that we are sending this through a radio link. So basically, we're using 438 megahertz. That is the frequency we're using. So once we send it to the ground station, that is where we are now running a machine learning algorithm. The reason why we're doing that is because the images we are sending to the ground station, they are compressed. So this is to save one on the bandwidth, number two, save on power. So what the algorithm does what we call image reconstruction. So basically, let me just explain this in a easy term. For example, we hover around this standard building. We notice the first time we hover around, we notice that this is the building, so we send that image as it is. The next time you're hovering around, we are sending only the changes in the pattern, not the entire image again, because you already have the image.
Okay.
So we just, okay, something has changed. So that's what we send. When you send to the ground, the algorithm is able to reconstruct and match the former image and what has changed. So this enables us to see patterns and all those prediction. So after seeing patterns, the machine predicts, okay, the machine learning algorithm in the ground station predicts, okay, this is the migration pattern of the locust or livestock or these things we want to see. So it takes around 98 minutes to go through its orbit.
Oh, okay.
So it means that it will only be above Kenya around 5 minutes. So that it might be too short to get also data down. So that's why you're using two kinds of communication media, that is S-band and also LoRa, to get this kind of images and telemetry. So we kind of separate images with its own link of communication, telemetry in its own link of communication. Yeah.
I'd like to know this. Before we send this unsuspecting object into space, how will we test it to ascertain that it actually will do what we're saying it should do?
Okay. So we are currently actually running tests first on the structure itself to make sure that space environment is not like here. For example, you can get 200 degrees up to negative 200 degrees, that is up to 300 degrees Celsius in space. So that means we need to make sure that the structure can hold that kind of thermal changes. And right now it's very hot, then all of a sudden it's very cold because it's really changing very fast. 98 minutes to revolve the entire planet is very fast. It's actually moving very fast. So we are doing those thermal tests. We're also doing the test to find out how it will break in case something happens in space, so that we can see how the debris, when they are coming to planet, how will they be coming, so that we make sure they don't come in a way that they will injure, they will cause other effects on other satellites in space.
Okay.
Then also we are doing, for the communication, we are doing local communication testing, and also we're doing what we call link budget design, where we factor in theoretically, of course, the losses, the Van Allen belt effects, and all those things. Also, we are running, there are some tests which we are seeing how we can get partners to do, because we kind of don't have the machines around. But to answer is that we are doing tests and simulation to see how it will behave. Then also the grant actually covers a prototype. It's only 1 million. It takes more than, I think, 30 million to launch a nanosat in space. So the 1 million is just for a prototype phase. And the prototype, we are doing it at 37 kilometers above the ground. So it's kind of in the stratosphere. So before going to space, actually, we are actually doing a trial run in the test bed in the stratosphere. Yeah.
So how long is it expected to be there?
So a LEO lasts for 2 years.
Okay.
So after 2 years, you decommission it.
So by decommissioning it, are you calling it back? Or are you saying you can now die and stay up there?
Yeah, that's why he said, you remember the statistics he gave, there are a lot of satellites which are not used.
50% are just up there.
Yeah, so it means that once you decommission, it has become unreliable, so the data you're getting cannot be relied, so you just disconnect the link to them, because you cannot send them back here.
Right.
So they just remain there.
Neither you're going to send a rocket to go pick it up and bring it back.
But sometimes they fall from space.
Yes, they can fall also from space. Long before they used to detonate them, when they used to be few, but now it started causing some effects
on the others.
And also on the people on the planet, because big satellites, when they're detonated, when some particles might find their way, so they said, okay, we are just decommissioning. So we kind of leave them to go, and if they can go out and maybe get lost in space or something.
What that means is that space is beginning to get crowded.
Yeah, that's one actually of the disadvantage of having satellites. The orbits get crowded because they are very, get crowded.
And the information, the relaying of information, Now, I have to preface what I'm about to say. See, I come from a generation where when you wanted to listen to the radio, you did a little searching. There was no button you press for this thing to sort of like...
you turn the dial.
Yes, and you had the crackling sound, okay? And I was told that was supposed to be interference. Now, with that crowding, no interference whatsoever in the transmission of information that you want, no commingling of information up there.
Okay, interference will come in if you're sharing the same communication band, right? So like, let's say I'm sending this band, let's say 400, you're also sending 400. But now with advance in technology, we are able to filter those interference out and get the right signal. Number two, once a satellite has been used and decommissioned, basically means there's no communication back to the ground station, or if there is, it's not that frequent.
Okay.
So it means you have the chance to filter your signal and get it ready before you get it. So interference is not really a major issue. It might be there, but it's not that major. So the major is that they are crowding that orbits. So next time, let's say in the next 50 years, there might not be space maybe for, let's say, Uganda to launch theirs or Tanzania. Yeah.
There are very many questions that come here, in terms of who manages all those satellites up there. On Earth, we know that various organizations, for example, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority is in charge of our airspace, and it allows and it creates routes for planes. Who gave you the route? Is yours now, for example, the KU Cube Circle? Is it written there on the yellow line? Inapitia this route to come back? All those questions you'll be answering. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. We are speaking with Fidel Makati. He just graduated from Kenyatta University with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical and Electronic Engineering. But he's a team leader of KU Cube Nanosatellite Project, a group of engineering and other students from Kenyatta University who are working on a project to send a nanosatellite to space to help us in monitoring agriculture. These things that matter to them, the numbers, for example, they applied for a grant of $1 million and they got $1 million. They are sending a satellite with specifications. It has to be a maximum of 1 kilogram heavy. Theirs is now going to be 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters cube. And that's why they're calling it the nano cube, the KU cube. Those numbers that matter to you also matter to NCBA Bank. And what are they? Go to them and tell them what is it that you want. For example, if you'd like to go and take a loan and support these KU cube guys, you can go to NCBA Bank and tell them what you want. They look at the numbers not from the perspective of the figures, but they look at the numbers from the perspective of the import of what those numbers do to you. NCBA Bank, go for it. 27 minutes to 8. Let's take a break, see how the roads are looking like on Earth and how the weather is looking like from space. And then we continue the conversation. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 2 hash to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date, the hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Those clouds in Nairobi. But it's still going to be mostly cloudy for most parts of the morning. At 14 degrees, we go to highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's 13 degrees and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 22 and lows of 12. 14 will be the low in a mostly cloudy Nakuru. going to highs of 24 today. 22 will be the high in Eldoret. It's sunny at 12. 28 will be the high in Kisumu. Mostly cloudy conditions at 18. 17 degrees and sunny in Kakamega. Highs of 27 and lows of 15. 29 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's sunny at 23. Light rain at 24 in Malindi. Highs of 29. 27 will be the high in Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 20. 21 and sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 30 and lows of 21. 21 will also be the high in Johannesburg, where it's clear at 7. Come down to lows of 6. It continues to rain in Lagos at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 24. 30 will be the high recorded in Kinshasa today. It's mostly cloudy at 21.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, quite some wherever you look. Let's look North Airport Road going in that direction, in and out bound to the city, interestingly enough. Quite a lot of traffic this morning on Mombasa Road, again, experiencing what we have all week. And it looks like it's going to continue for some time. In Mombasa Road, North Airport Road, we're looking at Cabanas, then going on the overpass Changombe, and then going in a northerly direction. Still a lot of traffic this morning. Industrial area is also packed. Lunga Lunga, Enterprise, and then connecting with Likoni Road onto the Likoni Exchange on Mombasa Road is very slow this morning. The southern bypass leading towards Langata Road doesn't look too bad, but at Langata Road we're going to have some trouble. It's all the way from that junction at the southern bypass through to the roundabout at the Timor. And then also, so you're going towards Bagavi Way, that shouldn't be too bad. And Gong Road has some issues as you connect with the City Mortuary roundabout. My goodness, it's that time. It is the middle of traffic hour. We're going to see that this will last for some time. Thika Road, it continues to bleed all the way from Survey out then towards the city. At the Globe Cinema overpass, Kipande Road is what is being used. Rather, Kijabi Road is what is being used as an option there. But that too is packed. Coming out of Westlands, packed as well. Everywhere you look, it is packed. So it's going to need a dab of patience today. Tell us if you see a good alternative. Let's spread that word. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So as we keep complaining about how the roads are affecting all of us, let's also play our part.
Absolutely. NTSA, together with the European Union, is asking us to do a couple of things. Drivers, be aware of your surroundings. Know what's happening behind you, in front of you, to your left and to your right. Always watch out for other road users, motorists, border riders. You often say you can't see them coming until you actually saw them coming. Cyclists, pedestrians, and school children crossing the road, trying to get to and from school. They all depend on you for their safety. It doesn't hurt to share the road. Always wear your seatbelt, focus when you're driving, use your signals correctly, look around before making a turn, and remember, speed that thrills is speed that kills. Usalama Barani starts with you. Fika Salama, brought to you by NTSA and the European Union.
You know, border riders, they approach you from both sides of the road, from your left and from your right. Now, if you're on Mombasa Road, I can fully understand why they do that. There is no space for them to actually ride. They're sharing the same road with you, which is squeezed, which has earth in the middle, on the side. So they are trying to maneuver as best as they can. And usually they maneuver with your side mirror. They end up hitting it.
You can't see them coming until you do.
Well, actually, motorbikes move fairly fast. So one moment you're looking on the side. Remember, you're driving and doing what is being suggested. You're trying to be alert. I don't have eyes at the back of my head.
No?
So I can only look and see briefly on one side and the other. Because if I don't focus, then I will not be seeing what's in front of me. The issue here is well received. That particular piece of advice. If this road and the construction of it took into account other users, pedestrians, motorbikes, cycles, then this discussion would be a completely different discussion. And these contractors that we have now currently, are they telling us that this is the same way they build a road in their country?
Hakuna. Engineering like we've been told by Fidel Makati, is a discipline of solutions. Creating solutions, making things efficient. And as we continue this conversation about, the KU Cube nanosatellite project, we've had conversations on this show about innovation and protecting innovation. Is this innovation of yours protected in any way?
Yeah. So part of the IPs we have, we're actually filing them. The first thing we're doing is consolidating the IPs because most of the things in the innovation might not be patentable because they are things which already existed.
Just when you say IPs, we're talking about intellectual property,
Intellectual
isn't
property,
it?
yeah.
Right, okay.
IPs, intellectual property. So we are consolidating the intellectual properties in the innovation. Then you're actually gonna, before launch, we're actually gonna protect them. Yeah. And part of them, of course, I've said that we're doing an operating system for our satellite, which will be the first one to be done in this side of the world, actually in Africa. So after we do that, we can be able actually even to lease for other guys think about doing space exploration instead of developing their own operating system, kind of like Windows but for space. We can lease it, like give them license to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned patent. Are there any things? Are there any items? Are there any processes that we've innovated that we can patent?
So patenting, for example, the T-Bavent ventilator, which I took part in last year, is patented. So you can patent a new innovation, a process, a service, but the main guy in the country is called KIPI. So that's where you go to file your patent and give your claims, and they get investigated.
And what's the coverage of the patent? Is it only Kenya, East Africa, East and Central Africa?
So for KIPI, it covers Kenya. If you want Africa, you have to go to an organization called ARIPO, that is for Africa.
In Zimbabwe.
Then for the world, you also have to go to another organization. But KIPI covers Kenya. It means that if guys go to Uganda, you might not be really protected.
What was when you did this with the ventilators? What was your experience with trying to get it patented? Did you have a smooth experience, or did you have?
The best part is what I've learned my journey so far as an innovator and an engineering student, now a graduate engineer.
Well done. Congratulations in order, sir.
Thank you. Is that you learn to walk on the shoulders of giants, because most people want to do it alone, but there are guys out there you can rely on their strength. So what I mean by this is that, when we came up with the idea of the ventilator, and it was an idea and rejected by us, patent is owned by students, but we found a person we can work with, that is Kenyatta University. So when we work with Kenyatta University, we realize that, for example, Kenyatta University has a directorate of IP. They have it's called Chandara Incubation and Business Center. So they have like an IP office there. So once we started off, they actually started filing claims. So by the time we were going to public about the ventilator, we already had an IP and an IP reference number. Right. So we kind of did not was shielded from all this hassle of I filed, how far, when is the progress, and other things also that Kenyatta University had. So I think mentorship is very important in every innovation journey.
From my understanding, anything that has to do with space tends to be expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
That 1 million shillings, was it enough?
That one won't be enough, actually, and that's why we told our sponsors, Kenya Space Agency, and they said this one is just to do we were just giving you a prototype, to do a prototype that is a test of what you have.
Is it enough for a prototype?
It might not also be enough for a prototype, but now we have a second phase which they are willing to open that will allow us now to launch into deep space.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fidel, even before this started, obviously you being recognized by the president, and that was in line with other things that you had done, spaces that you were entering into, excuse me, because of innovation. Now, I'm looking at the bigger picture here. What do you feel then your role would be, the role of other innovators in this country, to then bring about matters development issues and say, look, beyond the recognition, because it feels good, absolutely, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
But then to actually use your knowledge in these spaces that can actually develop things in this country and move us away from this, in my opinion, heavy interdependence on others. That there are things that we can actually start to do in this country that will not require outside intervention, will not require this begging hand all the time. But that if we focused inward, that we can actually have homegrown solutions to the things that plague us. Yeah. What do you think your role, things like this that you see, what do you think your role is with the knowledge that you have and that the knowledge that others have as well contributing to this? with, of course, the much needed help and support of government. We can't even run away from that or others.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think when I was in campus, there's a lecturer who taught us something called the Pareto principle, where 80% is caused by 20%. 80% effect caused by 20% of the causes. So I basically think, a role of the people we have, innovators who call themselves innovators in the country, is basically to kind of like pay the price that will pave the way for the industrial revolution. So we might not have it easy when we start, but we really have to persevere and make sure we pay that price. One is either if you can't come up with an innovation or you cannot proceed to the market, you can inspire people. You can actually train them. I remember when I used to be in campus, I used to train guys on these fourth industrial revolution technologies, just to make sure the entire university community has at least knowledge on these things, so that you never know what they will solve, because it's just a step at a time. And some innovators might be the ones paying the price for others. When they come, they find it easy. Kind of like the US. There are guys who in California long ago, it was a desert. So there are guys who actually did all the paying of the price in the Silicon Valley. Right now, we see it as a hub.
Right.
And companies just come anytime and they start off. But there are guys who started off the Silicon Valley. So in Kenya, we are starting also that journey. I think motivation is very important, more than because we have tried, some people have said I've tried government funding and they cannot access. I remember there's a time I reached a point whereby I asked myself, okay, I've tried this, I've tried that, I didn't get any grants. So I said, maybe I should behave like JFK. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So I think for innovators, people who are trying to go out there at this stage, which the country is still trying to find a grip, their role is basically to make sure they get it right, so that when these other guys come behind them, they find it easy. And that's how we can move Kenya to the next stage.
This ventilator, I liked this story very much. Innovated, tested, it worked.
Yeah.
And then?
So a ventilator is it's a medical machine which is very critical. It's actually it's a critical medical machine. So basically, what companies do, the fastest I think they have ever R&D'd a ventilator is 6 months, and testing it takes even 7 years sometimes, depending on the laws governing such kind of equipment in a country. So basically, what happened is that we managed to do our ventilator in 3 months. So that's half the standard time people usually take. And we did most of the things from ground up. That means there are days we were sitting down in a lecture hall with medical students taking us through the principle of ventilation in a human body. And we were trying to think as engineering students, how do we create a machine that mimics this human body? Because at the time we were doing it, guys had not disclosed how their ventilators work because it was really a hotcake back in 2020. So because there was a acute shortage. So we said, okay, let's do it from principles. So that's what we started. So we IP'd it. But now the issue was this clearance, the regulations which are there.
Yeah.
So you need to go through. We did KEBS, the first one, we got it. We did the ethical review committee, we got it, because they need to see what are the human ethics in testing. What is how do you connect it to a human body? Is it biocompatible? Will it cause other effects? You can create a machine that ventilates, but the patient lives there with cancer. So you have actually, you're not done much.
It worse.
Yeah. So, and we did also, we got a PPB clearance. We need to get NACOSTI also clearance. So right now we're in a stage whereby now we got a clinical trial partner. So we're now moving it to clinical trials before now going to the market. So one key thing the university has is they really want to get it right, because it's kind of like their flagship project and product, that is. So it means that when we were doing the testing for a ventilator, we got another ventilator which is mostly widely used in the country, and we compared it to the standard. The ventilator actually did not meet the standard. So the
ventilator that was being used in the country did not
meet the standard. It was not calibrated.
Yours was of a higher standard.
Yeah, so ours met the ISO standards. So because once we are doing it, the university is very keen on getting the standards right, because it's an institution of higher learning. So they can't miss. If they miss, it will create credibility issues of their courses and stuff. So when we got this other one which was being used, we tested it with vis-a-vis the ISO standard. It wasn't calibrated. So we said, and this is what guys use. So they said, okay, you have to make sure yours get it right, so that we have kind of like if you buy a German machine, you're very sure it's a machine. Yeah.
And we talk about this here on very many times. universities, citadels of knowledge, centers of research, and it's good to see that a university such as Kenyatta University is encouraging a lot of innovation and thinking beyond the classroom teaching for its students. However, the challenge also then comes in the other part of the conversation that we have here, whether we are training people that meet the current market needs. Looking back at what you've done now as an innovator, as in your own research, and then looking at the coursework that you've gone through in university, are we training to meet the market needs?
That's a good question, and I think most people. I think this depends on expectation when you go to campus, because most people in Kenya, they want to go to campus and get a good job. So, and part of what my course is called Bachelor of Science. So basically, they teach you the principles behind electrical and electronic engineering. So if you get out there, you might ask yourself, where do you use calculus?
Yes.
But the truth is, what Bachelor of Science is supposed to do is it makes you an inventor. It makes you somebody who can create solutions. Not really come and... people say, okay,
existing
I
solutions.
came here, I found this machine, I couldn't use and they didn't teach me, but they taught you the principle behind that machine. So it means adapting any new technology will be easy for you because the principles remains unchanged. So I think university curriculum is actually universal. I don't think the training in the MIT and KU is the same because the curriculum is universal. Then what you're supposed to do is what can you do with that knowledge? Sure. So when we were building the ventilator last year, actually all this knowledge came together. Because we actually, we learned about a unit called numerical analysis. Now we can use it here to find the error in our solution, in our test data, and all those things. And we actually realized that the reason why people are fighting university education is because of the mindset of the country, because most people in Kenya want to be consumers and just maybe get employed or something like that. But now if you go to other countries which they think of producing, you realize this curriculum is very important to them. So my standing is that I think the curriculum is okay. The issue is now how do you, because students mostly just stick to the curriculum. They don't see how they can apply or how they can add to. Kind of like universities give you the skeleton, you have to put the meat on the body.
Sure. Does the university inculcate that in its students?
We have courses which, for example, I was taught entrepreneurship as a course. I was taught leadership as a course.
Was it part of your curriculum?
Yeah, part of the engineering curriculum as a unit. And through that, I think, actually started my company last year also through that. And there are some things I was taught, like how do you finance some bookkeeping and accounting, which you can't get engineering doing. But it's really helpful now because I now see, okay, how do I make sure I can calculate my profit margins if I'm running a business and things like that. But mostly, when you go to university, it's assumed that you're driven. It's not high school where they have to cane you to study. You have to. So if you're there, actually, you should be driven. I should know at the end of my study, final year, what am I expected to do? I'll give you an example. Myself, when I joined first year, I already knew that by the end of the fifth year, I'll be joining a PhD program. So that actually influenced my way of studying through the university.
It's something that you were determined to do.
Yeah, something that I'm looking forward to do. So I have to say, okay.
So it wasn't something that was inculcated in you when you got to university.
So I wanted to do PhD before I joined the university. So I was driven towards that. So most of the things I did.
Why did you want to do a PhD?
Okay, I believe that before you can you can change the game, you have to master the game.
There you go.
So like if I want to change how engineering is perceived in the country, electrical engineering, then I have to master it because you have to know the rules before you can change the game. That's what I believe. But it might not be true for other people, but for me, I think it's true.
It's true for everything else. By the way, that's also universal truth.
Just that not everybody has that perception.
Yes.
Not everybody will look at it in terms of, okay, so I want to study this so that I can influence change at some point. Others will be saying, I want to study this so that I can start earning as soon as possible and make the big bucks and walk around saying, I'm engineer so-and-so, engineer Fidel.
Or you get your qualifications and as far as you're concerned, you have arrived. Whereas on your graduation day, you're actually being told you've just begun.
Yeah,
yes.
Sure. So it really depends in what your intent is. Because if your intent is getting employment, then through the curriculum, you'll be checking where is this theory applied in the industry. Then you say, there are these 3D printers which use this theory.
As we conclude, Fidel, I'd like to ask you a question that we discussed earlier when we were looking at the papers. So the university placements came out, and we've seen the top 15 students in KCSE have taken courses in medicine. And the others I've also taken courses in engineering. And this is what happens. You know, I'm assuming for you to end up where you ended up, you are among that top, how many?
In our days, there was no ranking. So
there's still no ranking. You just know that you're
but
top
when
something.
you consider
you have the A.
what is required for you to admit it to the course,
that's true.
It isn't a C+.
You have the A.
That's so true.
Yes.
Now, most of your colleagues, those that were in school with you and scored as highly as you did, and then those that joined the courses with you are also people who are A students and A- students.
Yeah.
CT was arguing that it's about time that we also started encouraging A students to look at other courses, not just engineering, medicine. Do you agree?
The truth is, I think I agree with him because we need doctors need engineers need teachers. So we really need all disciplines to have the total package as a country. We don't just need. If all of us are doctors, then we have a problem. If all of us are engineers, then who's going to treat us?
Well, not all of us are A students.
Okay. Also,
but his point is a valid one.
Of course.
So
yes.
also, people don't know that when you go to university, I think those A's and A- they actually C's because you start. It's like you kind of start afresh.
It's a reset.
So I really think. Okay, my opinion, like I said, you don't really judge somebody's brightness by the papers they scored after KCSE, because when you come to campus, we have had, for example, let me give you, myself, I didn't study in a national school.
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Kaimosi Boys. But when I was graduating last July, I got the highest GPA ever in my school. It has never been scored like that.
Well done.
I was the only first class honors in my school. In my discipline.
But
I didn't study in national school when I was. So it basically means you don't judge based on those things. You actually judge somebody because some things are born out of passion and interest.
Absolutely.
Not really what you scored in a paper.
I agree.
Yeah, that's my. But like I said, it's just my opinion.
No. Thank you so much for validating the
opinion
point I was
matters.
laboring to make this morning. Thank you.
You've made CT's day.
It's made my day.
Opinion is very important.
Yes.
Okay. Speak to your fellow students. I mean, not your fellow students. So, fellow engineers and fellow people like you who are thinking of innovation, who are in school, and they're just wondering, how do I move from here? I'd like to innovate, but I'd like to secure funding or grants. I can't. I'd like to get some support. I can't. What would you tell them?
So first I'll tell them it is possible, it has been done, and it can be done. So if you can build actually a medical machine, right now we are building a machine that goes to space, and it's actually locally built here. So it means everything is possible. Actually, technology can solve most of the problems we have as a country. So I know there are hurdles during that journey when you're designing this issue of funding and stuff. But I think the best thing that worked for me is this mentorship issue, like finding guys who you can work with. So you don't have to do it alone. You can find guys you can work with, either as mentors or partners, because there are guys who already at least worked maybe half the journey. There are guys who are good in some sector. So locate somebody who can mentor you or partner with you so that he can help you, so that your focus can actually be on what you're doing. Also locate a good team, because most of this product, actually most of the projects, all the projects I've done with a team. And the team is very good because it actually cushions you and helps you. So, for example, the ventilator, I couldn't do medicine and engineering and software at the same time. So I had to include medical students inside, software engineer students, so that my focus will be embedded systems and electrical engineering, so that you can do it, you can be a masterpiece. So it can be done. It is doable. We have done it, and it's possible. Just keep on pushing it.
Thank you very much. Fidel Makati, Head of State Commendation. Next time we host you here, we hope you'll be having the OGW, right? Golden Warrior.
And we also ask next time they call it to the State House. Tell us so that we can accompany you.
I will tell you.
You want to go to State House?
So that we can also go and ask for
aiming
agency.
for space. You're thinking about just up a hill.
My brother.
You've got to start somewhere.
It is that pursuit of space that got him to State House. Yes. And since he's already going there and he can invite it again,
you just want to
I'm
go to State
hanging
House.
on to his coattails.
Thank you for joining us today, Fidel.
Okay.
Have a lovely day, and also go back and say hello to your team, the students who are there, and your mentors as well at Kenyatta University, as well as Dr. Victor Mongera.
Okay.
Tell him we said hello.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Mwambie amesalimiwa na CT.
Okay.
Asante sana. Keep it right here. Conversations continue to the next hour. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. As political competitions get closer, Trans Nzoia County Commissioner Sam Ojwang has said the government has put in place effective strategies to monitor the behavior of some politicians who have a tendency of creating tensions in the country. Ojwang said the National Cohesion and Integration Commission will work with other institutions, including the DCI and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, to gather evidence.
Ya kwamba tutakuwa tunaangalia kwa makini zaidi matamshi yao na mipango yao, iwe ni ambao yatakuwa na agenda ya kuchochea Wakenya, kusababisha vurugu. Zile vifaa zitatumika kutape statements. Already tumemap the areas ambazo ni hotspots katika kaunti hii sababu ya yale yaliyofanyika pale mbeleni, ya kwamba tuhakikishe general elections itakuwa peaceful, free, fair, transparent, na Wakenya wamalize tarehe 9 waendelee na maisha yao.
Jubilee Deputy Chairperson David Murathe has said that he is in office to stay. Murathe says that only President Uhuru Kenyatta has the authority to let him go from the party leadership and not any other leader. He is now asking the leaders pushing for his removal from office to instead resign and stop pushing that he and Tuju leave. A section of Jubilee leaders have continued to demand that Tuju and Murathe step down, insisting that they have failed the party. Now, ODM has postponed its scheduled meeting in Kakamega that was to happen tomorrow following the presidential directive that banned all kinds of political gatherings. ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, however, confirmed that today's meeting at Sikri in Homa Bay County will continue as planned because preparations had been completed. He says the meeting will proceed as per the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 protocols. Here is Homa Bay Governor Cyprian Awiti and Woman Representative Gladys Wanga.
Raila Amolo Odinga would like to consult with leaders, run dialogue with leaders of various backgrounds, various aspects of our life.
This region will come together and solidly be behind Raila Amolo Odinga in his bid to unite this country in support of his handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, but in his bid to move across this country, preaching the message of unity, the declaration of unity, Azimio la Umoja.
Now, as the country continues to battle COVID-19 and positive cases steadily increasing, we ask, are the protocols from the Ministry of Health applicable to everybody, or are there special groups that can overlook the protocols? This is because despite President Uhuru Kenyatta and Ministry announcing the extension of the COVID-19 protocols for 60 days, a section of politicians seem to be ready to disregard the protocols. Yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta gave new directives on COVID-19.
That all physical and in-person public gatherings and meetings, including political rallies and campaign meetings for impending by-elections, are hereby suspended with immediate effect for a period of 60 days. That enforcing these measures, all security agencies are directed to ensure that the organizers take personal responsibility and are held to account for any violation of the measures.
If the President's directives to be respected, why is ODM through the Secretary General Edwin Sifuna issuing statements confirming that today's meeting in Homa Bay will go on? Will security operators ensure the protocols are respected? This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, still continues to build up on Mombasa Road this morning, and we're seeing quite a lot of it in and outbound from the city. Let's look at that ICD route as an option to go off Mombasa Road and then connect with the Southern Bypass later on. Probably something that you want to think about using. North Airport Road and then heading out towards Outer Ring also is an issue, especially as you get to the junction. The Eastern Bypass, however, is looking good, as is the Southern Bypass. Langata Road now packed, hot and heavy. We're also looking at Aerodrome Road coming back in this direction, going out towards the city, and then using Uhuru Highway to go in and outbound to the city is also quite full. We're looking at Jogo Road, then spilling over to Landis, and then out towards the City Stadium roundabout. Kamkunji roundabout also, issues there as you get into the CBD. And then also looking at that Pangani area coming off the Thika Superhighway with quite some traffic this morning. We're still in the middle of traffic hour. This one, we just have to take it as it is and then see what happens thereafter. Hopefully, it will not be too sticky in terms of any incidents. Remember that we want you to be safe on the roads this morning. SpiceFM KE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Let's know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Spread the word. And text as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation
It
Room.
is 6 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the third hour. We are here until 10 o'clock. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We are on SpiceFM around the country, 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa, 87.9, Kisumu, 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, 97.7 in Malindi. And for the next 1 hour, we are also live on KTN Home. We begin the hour with the day's proverb.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer. Clearly a proverb from an agrarian community.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
Yes.
And I said, it doesn't take into context what made this person come begging for food.
It's a proverb.
Failed rains.
Not a policy statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's an insult. It's like trying to also condemn the beggar, saying the beggar is lazy.
Remember, I prefaced it by saying a healthy person, not a person, healthy.
Yeah.
Able-bodied, as we like calling them.
Yes.
Assuming that there's nothing wrong with this person.
Absolutely.
They're healthy, yes, but
they're not mentally adult. They are not physically adult. So, Eric, you know this drought issue?
Yeah.
And the issue surrounding it is a bone Eric is not going to let go.
No.
Anyway, we have a guest, Eric. Let's leave the bone. And
because
the
we
guest
have an issue, and our guest will also tell us his perspective of this.
Yes.
Duale is a member of parliament for Garissa Township. He was the first leader of the majority in the National Assembly under the 2010 Constitution. He served as leader for the entire first term, and then he served as leader for a couple of months into the 12th Parliament.
Yes. 12 years.
See, years in months, Pia. Okay, years.
Months gives the impression
that it's less than a year.
Well, yeah, and I say couple, it's 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but if you say years, we know you've got 12 months in a year. If you say years, then you have many, many months beyond 12.
He was a leader as well in this 12th Parliament. He joins us in the studio. Karibu sana into the Situation Room.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Welcome to the hot seat.
Yeah, asante sana. It's good to be here.
It's been a while.
Finally.
We've been wanting to host you, and we've been having this conversation, but things keep happening. But karibu.
Asante sana.
Familiar.
I took a break from many things. Yeah, after I exited the coveted constitutional office. So I had to go back and re-strategize and one of the things I'm doing is I'm writing my memo. So,
that will be interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully next year, just 2 months to the election, I want to launch that memo.
That will be an interesting one to look at. So you're busy. You're keeping yourself
trying
busy.
to put down what many people don't want to say about the politics of Jubilee, the coveted office of Parliament. And many, many things. The politics of deceit and betrayal. So it will be a very interesting book, I hope so. Maybe the readers will tell me.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We will be here, and we'll look forward to reading that book.
But I'm back now.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
Let's start with the situation in your constituency in terms of COVID-19, and it's Garissa Township in Garissa County, and the Garissa County is one of the 10 counties that have been highlighted as those facing drought.
Yeah, I mean, COVID has affected nearly all the 47 counties. But the current surge, the Delta virus, Garissa has been affected mostly the last 3 weeks. The number of deaths, the number of people who have tested positive. And COVID is real. I mean, I'm a victim of COVID. I lost my mother last year because of COVID. I lost many friends. And unlike other parts of the country, also the COVID protocols are not very much enhanced in my constituency because of the nature of the community. I mean, the mosques are full. The hustlers you find in the marketplace are not wearing masks. And I think as a country, and I've said it on the floor of the House, is that we are missing the point. We need to forget about, this extension of curfews and all this. We need to vaccinate the people. And we need to have a very, very serious, particularly 30% of our population. We need to vaccinate close to 30 million Kenyans who are mainly in the old age bracket. And the resources have been provided for. So this is one of the things that amaze most of us, that in the last budget, we passed close to 34 billion for buying vaccines. But we hear government receiving 400,000, 500,000 donation. Of course, we have an issue in terms of where to buy. Most of the developed countries don't want to sell. They want to give priority. But I think we should forget about this extension of curfew and all that. We should focus on how many people we can vaccinate. That will save the country and save lives.
So apart from, just looking at the budget and approving the budget proposal by the National Treasury, spend 34 billion shillings on addressing COVID-19, what else should Parliament be doing to make sure that the people that they represent are getting vaccinated as fast as possible?
Parliament has three functions: representation, oversight, and budget making. Parliament has provided, apart from that 34 billion for vaccination, for buying of vaccines, Parliament has given the Minister for National Treasury a serious package in cushioning Kenyans from the COVID effects. 11 billion to the small-scale business sectors. Another, I think, 13 billion to buy equipment, ventilators, expand the oxygen manufacturing facilities in hospitals. So Parliament has done its bit, and I think we did that by end of 30th of June. So we have also looked at, in terms of taxation, the finance bill. I mean, a number of proposals of government were denied the approval by Parliament, They wanted to tax LPG, they wanted to tax borders. So all those things were rejected. So Parliament has done its bit. And I think the Minister for Finance has powers even to come back to the House and rearrange his budget. So if you ask me, the most important thing that this government must do, and many governments are doing, is to go out and make sure they buy vaccines and vaccinate as many people as possible. Secondly, and more fundamentally, of course, they are the other side of the coin. I think they should allow the private sector, with due diligence, to import vaccines, because there are many Kenyans who can afford to buy a vaccine for their family, for themselves. All that government needs to do is that they must make sure that whoever is importing the right vaccine as approved by WHO. But there are many Kenyans who can buy for their parents, can buy for their friends, for their relatives. So I think because in other countries, if you walk, you can walk to a pharmacy, to a clinic, and you can you can pay for a vaccination. I mean, so I think government, in terms of vaccination and in terms of buying vaccines, if you ask me, they have failed because the resources are there.
Okay. So you're talking about, you've talked about representation, oversight, and budget making, Duale. So if we are saying that the role of Parliament in doing those three things has been achieved, do we then say now any kind of responsibility or accountability that you would otherwise accord to Parliament then would be removed if now you're not seeing on the ground these things being played out. Are we saying, okay, look, we approve the budget, and if they then didn't do it, it has nothing to do with us. Can we talk about it with vaccines? We can talk about it with raising or lowering the debt ceiling. We can talk about it with, asking for budget when it comes to roads and infrastructure. So are you saying that on the three things for which we are responsible for, anything thereafter does not fall on our shoulders?
No, in fact, Parliament, once it appropriate resources, it's a budget-making house, appropriate resources, Parliament third function kicks in, and that's of oversight. I think parliamentary committees, the health committee, needs to now follow up and call the CS for health and ask him, and the CS for National Treasury, what happened to the money we allocated you? I mean, you had a deadline. I think the president gave a deadline of August 30th and then extended it to December. Parliament has a role to call every day and ask, what's going on? So I think if you ask me that, then Parliament has failed. Let's call it. Parliament must oversight each and every organ. It's a very, very important aspect of and function of Parliament in accordance with the Constitution.
So why is it not happening?
So I think now we are dealing with a bill on NHIF. I think Parliament, after we passed the budget, we were on recess. We are back now. Unfortunately, today we are going for another 1 month recess. And when I saw the containment last night being given out by the president, in fact, I want to raise on my seat this afternoon, ask Parliament, why should it go on recess? I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, I think the main thing was to go and be with the people, do the 2022 politics. So if you ask me, I think Parliament committees, not the plenary, respective committees have failed. They need now to follow each and every penny they have set. And I think if Parliament is listening to me one of them, we must accept that we are. But if you ask me, this is a serious national and global crisis. The Minister for Finance and the Minister for Health and Government and working with other global partners should not wait for Parliament to summon them and ask them, what are you doing? I mean, that should be the last resort. I mean, any government, any democratic government of the kind we have in our country has a social and moral responsibility. Particularly, we are not talking about building a road. A road can wait. We're not talking about improving the port infrastructure. We're talking about saving the lives of your citizens. I mean, it is a cardinal duty, even in our constitution, that government must provide affordable and accessible health care to its citizens, regardless of their status. So I think Parliament will come where government has failed. But I am not seeing, all that I'm seeing from government, unfortunately, the last 1.5 years, is just to extend the curfew time and do it 60 days. I don't know why they do 60 days. We should even get used to 45, 50. So it's
what's
like...
the magic of 60?
I don't know what's the magic about the 60. We are not told which are the hotspots. We are not told how many we have vaccinated, how many have got the first jab, how many have got the second jab, how many... In fact, if you ask me, even the data that the Ministry of Health gives, in my opinion, is not a factual data. And I'll give you an example. I contracted COVID in, I think, September last year, around August, particularly when my mom was sick. And I remember when I went for the first test, the people from the Ministry of Health used to call me every day. Alan Duale, where are you? I'm at home. How's your family? Are you isolated?
Yep.
And there used to be an update. And I remember the 11th day, because I didn't fall sick. The 11th day, they told me, if you have not seen anything serious, you can go back to work. But the last 3 weeks, 1 month, I had many friends and neighbors who contracted COVID. Nobody is calling them.
They're on home-based care and no more
Nobody is
follow-ups.
calling them. Nobody is monitoring them. And I had to ask even a neighbor yesterday, do you receive calls? He says, nobody. I mean, he has been there for the last 2 weeks at home. So I think there's a liturgy. So I think the whole system has just withdrawn to giving us numbers through 411. After 60 days, coming back to us, the president telling us 60 days, no public gathering. And I think it is very, very shameful that a government can give an order. And the same next day, the same people who break are the top leadership of this country, including myself. I think, so in fact, I looked at the president last night and I said, give me a break. What is the president saying? Today, ODM has a huge function in Homa Bay.
Yes.
I am sure the deputy president will have his usual crowd in Karen. I'm sure by Saturday you'll see crowds. So it looks like
it's just ticking boxes. It's just, let's say because we ought to say.
You know, Mheshimiwa, there's something you mentioned, and there's a lot of truth in it with regards to the vaccines. Let me just give an alternate perspective. You see, countries like South Africa participated in the development of this vaccine, like we did. We also participated in it. Now, where perhaps the government failed at that point was in the negotiation process. South Africa has never complained of having a problem with vaccines because the very people whose vaccine they were helping process and test, they arrived at that arrangement. Israel did the same thing. We were part of that process, but somehow we didn't negotiate well enough to be able to receive. That's one. The other thing is, the vaccines we have throughout the world right now are actually for emergency use authorization. And what that means is that they've looked around, you have a serious condition that is threatening mankind, that's why they're calling it a pandemic, and there is nothing in the market that is authorized, which has gone through all the required authorization tests that is available. So they authorize this particular one for use. Now, why this one changes things is because you can't actually sell it off the counter that easily. This particular one, not others. Others which have gone through approval, you can sell. But this one, we are arguing that actually we are still testing these vaccines because all the information that we get, you're vaccinated. They still want to know what happened. And it's because of this knowledge that they keep seeking to acquire that you'll find again a country like Israel is now giving a booster shot. You had the 2, you're getting a 3rd shot. It's because they're still trying to figure it out. Now, in the world of science, it isn't unusual, especially if you have something new like COVID. There's a lot they don't know, and there's a lot they're trying to figure out. But we failed to negotiate when we're in a position of strength to ensure that part of the arrangement was, okay, we're helping you test this vaccine, but in consideration, you will also give us this priority. Somewhere that was missed out.
What role would Parliament have played in this?
No.
From the oversight point of things.
All Parliament could have done was ask questions because Parliament doesn't go to negotiate.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you heard any question coming out of Parliament, out of the House?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the number of statements which are asked every day. But, Parliament today could have been indicted if they didn't provide the necessary resources. Parliament's role now is just to make sure why is government taking too long. We're so excited about 300,000, 400,000 given by the UK government. We go to the airport, a whole,
delegation to
yes,
receive.
A whole delegation. The PA as a minister is there. It even touches on our sovereignty, touches on our self independence. I mean, if we cannot buy, we're talking about a budget of 3-point-something trillion. So in my opinion, if you ask me, maybe there are people who want to get kickbacks out of these 34 billion. So shopping around looking for where do we buy? But I think, of course, they're facing the challenge that the countries that produce vaccines wants to make sure that the first priority go to their people. So as a country, we should have developed the infrastructure, as you said in South Africa. We should have developed this infrastructure. We should have seen it a long time ago that we need to empower and the capacity of Cambry and other vaccine producing institutions.
Okay.
You know, we talk about all these things as if, we are observers. All of us are observers. We, the citizens, are observers. Whenever we speak to a member of parliament, they speak to us as if they are also observers. Whenever we speak to a minister, they speak to us as if, it's the other department that's supposed to be doing something. But we want to come back and ask the specific role and duty that parliament has had, especially under your leadership, in making sure that these things, we have structures in place to make sure that our government is responsive to the needs of the people at all times. But let's take a break now at 25 minutes after 8. We are live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM and online with Aden Duale, Garissa Township MP, first leader of the majority in the National Assembly. He's here with us today, and we are asking ourselves, has the 12th Parliament delivered? And then, he was also leader of the 11th Parliament. We'll also look back at the tenure of the 11th Parliament. Good morning. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
Have you seen am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana. The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
16 degrees, cloudy conditions in Nairobi. Some parts the sun coming out, highs of 23 and lows of 13. At 14 degrees, it's cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 22. 24 will be the high in Nakuru. It's mostly cloudy at 16. Partly sunny conditions at 14 in Eldoret, highs of 22. It's going to be mostly cloudy for most parts of Kisumu at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 18. 20 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kakamega, highs of 27. We'll go to highs of 29, mostly sunny in Mombasa. Light rain in parts of Malindi at 25, highs of 29. 27 will be the high in a mostly sunny Kampala at 21. 23 in Dar es Salaam, mostly sunny going to highs of 30. 21 will be the high in Johannesburg. It's sunny at 9. And light rain in Lagos continues, highs of 29. And 30 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's mostly cloudy at 21.
Spice up your life.
All right, still continues, guys. Hot and heavy, still in the middle of traffic hour this morning, and we see quite a lot of traffic on Mombasa Road. They're still looking at the same thing coming off of Thika Road. Eastern Bypass, however, will take you off North Airport, outer ring, and out in that direction towards Thika Road, using the back way to get onto the superhighway, and then back in the other direction if you're coming towards Mombasa Road. Langata Road is still heavy, as is industrial area and other parts of the city this morning. So we're trying to traverse, get in and out. It looks like the best way to do this is go out in order to get in. Right in the middle of the CBD, quite a lot of traffic this morning, so let's watch out for that. If you don't have to be within the city centre, probably not necessary to do that right now. Uhuru Highway in both directions also is packed. 'Tis the time, 'tis the hour. Let's look at what it looks like in a short while. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
to you,
Nairobi.
Tuned in around the country, around the world. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM. In the room is CT Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif, and Aden Duale, former leader of the majority in the National Assembly, the first big boss of the National Assembly under the current constitution. We're talking about the things that are happening. The Parliament is helping the country steer through a global pandemic, and it's affecting all of us as a nation. You've said, yes, Parliament has approved when the National Treasury has come seeking funds. Parliament has approved when the Health Ministry has come seeking authorization to do a couple of things. But then, has Parliament followed up on whether these things are happening? We've had conversations like this before on this show, and we've even asked ourselves, has Parliament been captured? On the issue of whether the Health Ministry is addressing the matters, that the issues as they should be addressing them, we had a report, for example, by the Health Committee of the National Assembly on, is the money being spent on the right things? There's the issue of the social protection funds. Have those funds gone to the right pockets? There's the issue of KEMSA. There's still an ongoing investigation so many months down the road by the Public Accounts Committee. And we sit back and ask ourselves, what are these people doing? What is it that people get up to go to Parliament to do on a daily basis if the loudest voices coming out of Parliament are not on getting things done right?
You know, Eric, let me take you the situation and the scenario we're in. I mean, I had the opportunity to serve in the 10th Parliament, which was more like the Westminster model, where ministers were in the House and we had the backbench, which I served both as a minister, a deputy minister, and at the backbench. Then the 2010 Constitution brought a new architecture of a pure presidential system, where you have the majority and the minority. Now, the sad thing is that today we don't have the minority, ideally, quote unquote, the opposition in the House. All these things should have been raised by the opposition or the minority side of the House. Okay? Oversight in most parliamentary jurisdiction will be the key function of the minority side, the opposition. That's why they chair the oversight committees, the Public Accounts Committee, the Public Investment Committee, the Implementation Committee that makes sure every resolution of the House is implemented by government. Now, what we are having, the scenario we're having after the handshake, is that now we have two sides of the House that all work for government. Okay? So that's number one. So government, without any fear of contradiction, there is state capture of Parliament. Completely. You know, we must call a spade a spade. Chairs, for the first time, you'll find minority members of the House chairing committees that ideally should have been chaired by the government side, you know, the Education Committee, the Finance Committee. So the opposition now have gone to bed with government and they have shared even roles that ideally was for government, and you'll find now the opposition not raising issues of accountability and transparency. So that is one thing, because if you ask today, the leader of majority and the leader of minority they speak the same language on matters of national interest. I was watching the House of Commons last night on the matter of Afghanistan, and you could see the shadow minister for foreign affairs, the question and the issues that she was raising, and the question and the answers being given by the substantive minister for foreign affairs are two different things. You know, the shadow minister was putting the British government to task on its failure in working with the US over the last 20 years. What have you done? How can your investment, both militarily and everything, can be undone within 11 days? So the scenario we have in Kenya, and the framers of our constitution make it very clear that the minority must, the question they bring, the statement they bring, the oversight they bring, so that is not existing. And that's why you see the Public Investment Committee is not bringing the report of the KEMSA. I mean, it's now, I think, 1.5 years. I mean, a committee cannot sit. A committee within the reading of the standing order has a definite function. I'm a member of now the Public Accounts Committee, myself. And we deal with the reports of the Auditor General. And we have a timeline that financial year 2018-2019 must be concluded on this period. So we have got a state capture, and that's why, very unfortunately, because the executive succeeded. You know, the other thing I think I need to tell you also, that on the majority side that forms government, you know, the savior, the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. If you ask me, the savior for the people of Kenya is the judiciary. Why do I say so? The executive and the legislature go out to campaign together. They are more like bedfellows.
Yep.
You know, the animals of the same forest. So they might agree on many things. And that's why, unfortunate to say, that once the state captured the legislature, they thought it was very easy to capture the judiciary. And that's why we have myriads of court orders that this government has refused to implement.
If we look at pre-handshake times, let's look at this before. Are you then saying that there was then a clear participation by the minority, by the opposition, that would then lead to government doing what it's supposed to do? And are we now saying that now with what you're calling state capture, it's not happening anymore? In fact, was there in the times where you were in a position,
yes.
A great, powerful position,
yes,
did we see that work was being done as a result of the opposition doing its job?
In fact, in the 11th Parliament, that was the most difficult time of my life as the leader of majority. When the former Code coalition was existing, the numbers were not that much different. I think URP, TNA then of the 11th Parliament and its partners in the House, we were about 170. The opposition Code then had about 130. So you remember during the former, may their soul rest in peace, both leaders, the Honorable Nyenze and the Honorable Jacomi Dio were the minority leader and the deputy.
Yep.
You remember the security laws. At least the opposition were felt. I mean, we had to prepare. You know, they could walk out, they could go to court, they could make Parliament ungovernable. You remember?
Yeah.
But now that is a time I can tell you I had the most difficult time. One, because I had to establish a new office. It was a new office. So the first 1 year, I had to build the infrastructure, the human resource of the office of the leader of majority. I had to benchmark with other jurisdictions, like the House of Commons, the Congress. Now, what happened to the 12th Parliament? 12th Parliament, on the onset, I think the handshake took place around early 2018, around March. I mean, I went back and I slept. I had the most...
you had an easy time.
The 2.5 years I served before I exited, it was the most easy time for me because there was no opposition. There was no minority. I mean, anything I want, I could call the leader of minority, the Honorable John Bandy, to my office, call the ministers, agree on everything, particularly on bills.
So are you saying that if there's no opposition, if there's nobody really then poking you to do your job, Honorable Duale, are you saying that if there's nobody poking you to do your job, then essentially you're not really going to do it? Anything kind of flies. And since they're not really asking questions, let's just go ahead and do whatever we feel like doing. Is that what you're saying?
You know how Parliament works is that the moment the minority or the opposition oppose a matter on principle, on basis of the national interest and the Constitution, ultimately you'll get another liberal members of Parliament from the government side who will agree with that, including even part of the leadership. And we say, for me, even I used to go back to the president and tell him, my friend, I think this, we are wrong on this. And I remember a good example is one time when Lenku was a minister and I think Monica Juma was a PS. They wanted to disband IPOA.
Yep.
You know? And one of the time I told the president, I think you're being misadvised. This will not pass. And we used to consult that this will not pass. Even our members will gang up with the opposition. But the moment you have the opposition doing more work for government than the government-led party, then what happens is you'll have now a third force, which might not be very, very strong. And that's why they had to reconfigure the committees. You know, the most vocal members of parliament, the most critical members of parliament were removed from key committees. You know, the budget committee, the finance committee, they were taken to periphery committees. So what happens? Everybody says now, if the opposition have given up on government, so you see that's why you find quorum, lack of quorum. You know, at 2:30 when the House
It's
convening. It has never happened. You watch even today. It has never happened. I mean, I have been in parliament for the last 15 years. So, in all parliamentary jurisdiction, the minority side, unless a government of national unity has been formed, which happened in fact, during the Grand Coalition government, we did better than now. And you know who's in the minority? Now it depends on who's in the minority. The moment the minority is in a party like ODM, then the president's backyard, then the deputy president's backyard, then Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka's backyard. Most of those MPs who coalesce from those regions do not want to offend the position of the big boys who come from the region.
Yeah.
So what happens? Either they abstain or they walk out during the very crucial, critical bills, or they vote for government. So if you ask me, the handshake, you know, there are people who talk about the handshake has brought
peace,
1, 2, 3,
harmony.
4. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. But they don't want to discuss the damage the handshake has done to the legislature, to governance in our country, to the rule of law, you know, to the unity of the country, and many, many other issues. So Parliament's a victim, and she has asked a very good question. That what was 11th Parliament was a parliament that the opposition was very strong. You remember they used to walk for Parliament to the courts.
Yes.
You never see that. Today you'll see, I mean, I hardly had the leader of minority, Jacob Mudio, to second a government bill. But you watch, all government bills and all agenda of government are moved by the leader of majority, seconded by the leader of minority. It doesn't happen anywhere in any parliamentary jurisdiction.
It shows there's harmony. I'm thinking what it...
No, it doesn't show there's harmony. It shows there's a serious
what it exposes for me, which may be a positive on if you look at it this way, is it shows that our parliament is not truly independent. We are supposed to have 3 independent arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, the legislature. The legislature drawing its powers directly from the people, the executive doing the same, and also the judiciary doing the same. But here we are clearly being shown that the person who occupies that seat in Harambee House and State House has bigger say in the house along Parliament Road than anybody else. That therefore you have been elected by the people of Garissa Township, but you do not owe your allegiance to the people of Garissa Township. You owe your allegiance to either the leader of URP or the leader of TNA. And that is a failure of Parliament.
Yeah, let me put it in this way, and I think I totally agree with you. In the Constitution, in the architecture of our governance structure, within the 3 arms of government, the 3 arms of government must be independent. In fact, our Parliament, borrowing from a presidential system of government, no member of Parliament represents government there. No member of Parliament. You are there in Parliament to deal with the function given to you under Article 94, 95, 96, up to 97 for both houses. That you must oversight, you must represent your people, and you must legislate. And in legislation, you must look at what is offensive to your people, number one, to your region, to your community. In terms of representation, you must bring issues concerning your neighborhood until you reach issues of the country. And in oversight, you know, the architecture of our constitution has even given powers, all the powers of budget making to Parliament. When the minister tables his estimates, Parliament can throw it away and say, you have allocated more roads to this region. We are removing and we are putting here. These are more deserving because Parliament does what's called public participation, which is very central to our constitution. But as I told you earlier, parliamentarians, the legislature, and the executive do campaign together. They either look for to form the next, to grab power and form the next government. A group ends up in the opposition benches, and a group ends up in government. And there is the element of the ethnic politics. So there are people who come to parliament, and every member of parliament, when he comes to parliament, he wants to make sure that he gets re-elected. And how do you get re-elected? Who has the resources? You have the powers. In fact, parliamentarians have the powers to allocate resources to their constituencies, including the CDF. But there is a bigger thing. Even me, when I was leader of majority, I believed in it. That because we campaigned as an entity called Jubilee, we had a manifesto. We must consider how to fund that manifesto when we are dealing with the budget. It happens in all jurisdictions, even in the US. I mean, the Democrats will agree with the Biden administration in terms of what their manifesto was. But the scenario we have in our country, and I agree with the people, and I need to tell you that there was a capture in a number of senses. One, there's a certain segment and critical number of members of parliament who come from constituencies where people are not elected on the basis of the individual and his capacity and his development record, but they're elected on the basis of the big boy from that region. Talk of the Rift Valley, Nyanza, Central Kenya, and maybe Ukambani. So those people, their leaders are outside the house, but so they will always do
the bidding of
the
those
bidding.
leaders.
So they must support it. They will even tell you that we have instructions.
The way you feel
They don't have instructions from the people, but have instructions from the individual.
the individual.
Right.
That is one. Number two, then the moment, like the Jubilee, now that it has disintegrated and now I think it's not holding together. But when we were holding together, we had 172 members of parliament. Okay? And when we have a very critical government bill, even if it is against the wishes of the people, they are whipped by the party leader. We have a PG and we are told this is a position. So if out of the 172 members, if 100 are in the house, everything will pass. So I think the ethnic politics we have in our country, the big man syndrome we have within our political structure, also plays a very big role in how a member becomes independent. Very few members. I'll give you my case. I mean, I've been elected 3 times, and I've been elected on 3 different political parties. That tells you, from the region where I come from, is about the individual. Of course, we have our own party primaries. There's a clan factor in our region.
Yep.
So that's another. That is a
primary.
That's another primary. I mean, that's another primary. The guys, apart from those of us who come from very cosmopolitan constituencies like Garissa Township or Wajir Town or Mandera Town, the rest of the other colleagues from the pastoral communities also are victims of the clan negotiated democracy, the so-called, which is, if you see, that also has led to low caliber of leadership coming to the house, because the clan does not look at the competency, the education background, the history of the individual. They say this is one of our own. So we have a serious issue within the chemistry of the Kenyan politics.
Can I ask you, you remained leader of the majority even after the handshake for some time, right?
Yes.
Had you not been removed from this position, let's say you were still leader of the majority today, would you still feel that a state of capture had taken place? Would you still say some of the things that you're saying today had you not been removed from that position?
I will say the same thing, and I said it. But when I was a leader of majority, I mean, I had the opportunity to engage with the executive at the highest level, with the president, and say, This, I think, is not in the interest of the country. This will not. I'll face headwinds, particularly in the 11th Parliament. You know, I remember we did a lot of amendments to the security laws, you know, from a number of quarters. But one of the reasons, in fact, I that could have brought me into loggerheads with my party leadership, the rank and the file of my party who believed in the BBI. It was open for me that I was not ready, even if I was the leader of majority, to move the BBI bill. I was not ready.
Why?
The reason was the BBI had absolutely nothing for the people that I represented. You know, I'm the patron of the Pastoralist Parliamentary Group. I am even now the chairman of the Northeastern Members of Parliament. So when I look at the BBI in its structure and form, and I'm sure you heard me saying that you are, for example, you want to bring 70 constituencies. What is there for the people in the north? You know, compared to the 2011 delimitation of boundaries. So you've asked me a very good question. You know, there are two things, and I need to make it very clear. There are times when you hold a very coveted office, you have to balance. I mean, when you're the leader of majority, you're the leader of government business. So you have to juggle, as if you're holding the lever, as the late John Michuki used to say. But I had a history of both serving in government and then serving at the backbench in the 10th Parliament. If you ask me today, I mean, if you look at the statements I brought to Parliament from the issues of Kenya losing money and the failure of CMA, if you look at how the independent power producers, is a very big inquiry now in Parliament, how the independent power producers are making Kenyans pay for extra power bills. If you look at the many Kenyans who are, have no ID cards because of double registration. So now I'm back to where I can fit.
Now you're a true voice of the people.
Now I have to be again very careful because now again in Parliament I'm a ranking member where I sit. So still being a holder of a constitutional office for 7.5 years, I still behave with a lot of decorum in the house and outside the house.
Do you feel that is tying you down?
Which one?
The fact that you're a ranking member, the fact that, you know, there's that history of your immediate former leader of the majority. Do you feel that sometimes that holds you back from?
I think it doesn't hold me back.
Pushing what you'd like to push.
I think it doesn't hold me back from pushing critical national issues. Okay, it doesn't hold me back. In fact, the moment I raise a matter, the House listens to me, and members of both of the sides of the House agree with me. But it holds me back because I cannot join into any type of discussion because a member can have and say, you are the ranking member.
Something that has been niggling at the back of my mind, and when you mentioned that you are the leader of the Northeastern Caucus, I'm putting it in my own words.
Yes.
I had a light bulb moment. The thing that particular region is known for, among other things, is conflict.
Yes.
In the time that you have been in leadership, as a member of Parliament and as a leader within Parliament, tell me what it is that Parliament has done to stem this and to bring it to a halt, because it rears its ugly head cyclically. Every time you have an election nearby, it escalates.
I mean, you know that region, and it's not only our region. You'll find it in the Horn of Africa. And a classical example is what is happening in Ethiopia now because of the complex ethnic configuration, you know. So if you go to our region, there are certain dynamics that occur that leads to this conflict. One of them is a current drought. Drought is a recipe for conflict. People move the animals. The moment a pastoralist feels his life and that of his livelihood is in danger, he moves to the next. So he moves to the next, and the next maybe is another pastoralist. So there's a scarce of pasture, there's scarce of water. That happens. Two, there is a historical nature of clan hegemony, clan conflict. That
Differences.
this is majority. The element of majoritarian and minoritarian really exists within the pastoralist setup. Then the proliferation of arms. And above all, if you ask me, successive governments, including our own government, security agencies have failed. Today, if you ask me, the number of boots on the ground in Northeastern and in the pastoral areas is 50% of the boots in the rest of the other country. So the scaries, the soldiers are there. But again, is how effective are they?
But this is why I brought in Parliament, Mheshimiwa, because the powers, and you stated very clearly and categorically the powers that Parliament has. One, you can allocate a budget, meaning you can more or less determine.
Absolutely.
You can determine that this is going to happen. But even more importantly, oversight. You have the capacity to push the agenda to the point where it actually achieves what you intended.
No. I think where you're getting wrong is you need to look at to look at the historical marginalization and of the successive governments in Kenya, and look at it in the context of the atrocities that has happened in that region. You know, it is historical. It's about government. It's about government, not even about parliament. Let me give you a very clear example. The framers of the Constitution of 2010 felt that this region must catch up with the rest of the country. An equalization, a deliberate fund was put called Equalization Fund.
Yes.
With a sunset period of, I think, 10 years to address water, electricity, roads, and health. Because if you do roads, you reduce conflict. And it has happened. Government built the road between Nairobi and Garissa, built the road between Garissa and Modogash, Isiolo, all the way to Marsabit. There are no conflicts. It's even easier for security agents to reach to a conflict prone.
Yes.
That equalization fund, up to today, has not been actualized. Parliament has passed. Every year we put the budget. So it's a deliberate. And what have they done? I think 2 years ago what they did, they said, no, this is equalization. There are many other parts of Kenya
that need to be equalized.
So they diluted it. That's number two. You know, they talk of disarmament. Disarmament. You can't have, for example, in Nairobi, you can't have one part of Nairobi where guys have guns. But particularly with this government, so there's a deliberate government policy, successive government policy. The way I say, Coast region is known for drugs. How come successive governments don't want to deal with the drug menace unless government is part of that? So there's a systemic government failure, marginalization, even devolution. What has happened even in devolution is the first part here of our government, the 11th Parliament, government used to release money to people. Don't be cheated. This administration, particularly these 5 years, you might blame governors. They have got their own issues of ethics and corruption. But they only receive, what do they receive? They only receive recurrent. They only receive recurrent.
They're not receiving the money that they should be receiving.
They all get the National Treasury. So, but I agree with you, the issue of, and I think you need to read many people who have written about the systemic marginalization of people in the North. And that, today, if you ask me the North, and you guys are aware, schools have been closed for the last 3 years because of insecurity. Health centers. In fact, Garissa County, 67% of the children of Garissa County, school-going children, are in my constituency. Because all the other 5 constituencies, they either border the Ethiopia or Somalia. So schools have closed. Health centers are not there. People cannot move. There is the element of insecurity. So there's a lot of dejection. You come here, some don't get their ID cards. So I think we can discuss the issue of the North and the pastoralist.
We should actually now make a whole conversation about the North
yes.
and representation in the North and making sure that there's equalization and equity that goes
and you don't know what's happening? And then the most absurd thing is the president calling a few guys from the big tribes and say we can form the next government and leave out 70% of Kenyan landmass.
Thank you for joining us, Duale. Asante sana. Come again soon. We've also been live on KTN Home. Our audience on KTN Home, asante for watching. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock. The conversations continue on SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. 1,506 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 9,840 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is 15.3%, with total confirmed positive cases at 224,400. From the cases, 1,473 are Kenyans, while 33 are foreigners, 795 are females, and 711 are males. The High Court has declared the order by the government last year restricting public gatherings and processions to curb COVID-19 as illegal and unconstitutional. This comes after the Law Society of Kenya moved to court last year to challenge the directive. The court also issued an order restraining Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai or any officer from taking directives from the said National Security Advisory Committee. Now, the Court of Appeal's decision tomorrow on BBI will determine the direction of the ongoing talks between President Uhuru Kenyatta, ODM leader Raila Odinga, and the One Kenya Alliance. The talks are expected to resume after the decision tomorrow. Odinga has since stated that he will accept the outcome of the case whichever way it goes.
Alafu sasa siku ya Ijumaa tutangoja mahakama iongee. Sawa sawa? Sawa sawa? Wakiongea vizuri, sawa. Wakiongea vibaya, vile sawa. Sawa sawa? Lakini mwenendo yetu itaendelea. Sawa sawa? Unaelewa vizuri? Maana yake unasema nobody can.
Deputy President William Ruto said Kenyans are united and only have problems with the kind of economic approach used in the country. Speaking at his current residence when he hosted more than 600 political aspirants from Nairobi County, the DP said that Kenyans are united. Hitting out at ODM leader Raila Odinga, Ruto said the handshake was brought after some politicians claimed that there was a problem with Kenyans which was to be solved through the BBI.
Jamaa mwingine anatuambia ati kuna shida kati ya Mkenya mmoja na Mkenya mwingine. They brought us the handshake. But what happened? We destroyed Jubilee, the ruling party. It destroyed NASA. It sabotaged the Big Four plan. It created a big charade called BBI.
The central bank governor who fled Afghanistan this weekend has said he wished the country had been left with more time to plan for the withdrawal of U.S. troops. Ajmal Ahmadi said it was the Americans' right to leave, even though most Afghans wished they had stayed. But he said there should have been a longer timeline to implement the process. He also rejected President Biden's assertion that the Afghan military had failed to fight for its country. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Still continues around the city, quite some traffic on Jogo Road today, headed out just past Hamza. Not sure what is causing that, but a lot of folks complaining about this particular issue. It's going to continue for some time from what we see. Also, getting in and out of the city from Uhuru Highway, Aerodrome Road now looks a lot better. Right at the Bunaru roundabout, though, however, that is still heavy. Inbound on Mombasa Road, still an issue. Outbound as well. We're going to keep following it and see, hopefully in the next half hour or so, things should open up considerably. We're going to keep an eye on things, of course, and help us out to here. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the
It's,
only way to
5
start your
minutes
day.
after 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. City, let's start with the proverb.
Indeed, a healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer. Okay. Someone is saying, so Aden Duale was a majority leader. He was speaking for government. Now that he's not speaking for government, he claims to be speaking for the people. Please.
Isn't that how it is, though? Once you're in the inner circles, you have a certain silence about you. But then when you're, quote unquote, persona non grata, then the position changes and then you get a voice.
You know, there's striking that balance. There's striking the balance of, just like you were saying, the position that you hold and what it represents. It's the office, right? If you occupy that office, you are by extension saying that you are beholden to those that have given you that position in that office. And
only until you get out.
How you conduct yourself is tied. You're basically on a leash.
But here, he couldn't have put it more clearly, actually. He actually explained it and put it well. So even when we look at his conduct, he explained it. I'm given this job by this boss. And this boss expects me to carry out this function this way. Then he further explained and said, look, I was in constant consultations. Consultations is a two-way process.
Two-way.
I will say this and I will receive a response, but I will also be told this is how we want to do these things. And when it comes to party members, why do you have a whip in Parliament? That's precisely what you have a whip for. You have an issue that wants to be discussed. This is our position. End of story. And I like the way he's put it. He said, you look at any of the top political players in this country. He said, same thing. The moment a phone call is received by one of their people, whatever independence of mind you thought they had, out of the window completely. Whatever representation you thought was there for the people, out of the window. It's now what they have been told.
Is that issue of duty and collective responsibility, and we see that not just in the Kenyan jurisdiction, it's in all of them. But now that's where I ask the question, when your primary role is representing the people and oversighting the executive, at what point do you strike your greater allegiance to the people who elected you directly?
I think that story is ours. It is us who keep insisting on this
that it's
story.
the people who elected you.
Yeah, that election bit we get, and they were elected, yes, by the people. Thereafter.
By the people, and the people, I think, are given a back burner position.
Yeah, this narrative that we keep repeating about they're representing the people, it is us who think that. They represent the leadership. And they represent the desires and the dictates of the leadership.
Because like they said, they campaign together. They campaign together, and so this is what they were doing as they were campaigning. So basically, you know that, and we've said it even here before.
Yes, we have.
If you go to Ukambani, many of the MPs in Ukambani are allied to Wiper, and therefore they owe their position to Kalonzo. It's because they had received some nod from Kalonzo Musyoka that they got the ticket. And by that, because Kalonzo commands control of the voters in the region, they got elected. So if Kalonzo says, my friend, we are going this route, you cannot go back and start saying, but I don't agree with.
You know the role that people play in all this, huh? In the absence of the so-called grassroots supports of the people in this region, these party leaders wouldn't have that power that they have. It's these people who give them the power. It's acknowledging that if they don't like you, your people won't even vote for you. You see? Something as basic as that. So, the people who should actually raise these questions towards, not to just towards, at what point do the leadership of these parties separate what they think is their personal interest
Yeah.
and that of the people who have given them this power. Now, not the people they represent, because the representation bit is a bit iffy. The people who have accorded them the power that they have.
They get to a point where they don't feel as if those at the top level, they don't feel like they owe you anything. In fact, you owe them.
They're not beholden.
No. You owe them. It's not the other way around.
Oh.
Explain to me, how exactly do we owe them?
That's what they feel.
That's what they feel now. You're supposed to bow down and worship. I mean, once they're in that position.
I
then
do
you reverence
understand.
them.
I do understand the concept of sacrifice and what people go through in order to get to a certain point in time. But then, on the other hand, not everybody got detained and jailed and went to Nyayo House. Okay? If you went through that and you talk about suffering, that is clearly understood. No one's going to argue with it. But these are the gentlemen who've been living cushy lives under Kanu. And then suddenly you're in leadership and...
But also, yes, you sacrificed for certain ideals.
Yes, you did.
You suffered for those certain ideals.
Yes.
It should never mean that now the people owe you because of your sacrifice.
You chose to sacrifice.
And it's because of certain ideals.
Yes.
So stand by those principles. And those ideals were, I stand for justice and I stand for the people. That is what you are sacrificing for. So it can't. We can't flip
again
the
it
coin.
was for the people.
Yeah, we can't flip.
So you can't flip it.
The people owe me.
Yes.
Let's shift the conversation and now talk about vaccines. So we have vaccines that have been donated to us left, right, and center.
So we are told.
We have been told by Aden. We've been reminded by Aden Duale that Parliament approved 35 billion shillings to be used to purchase vaccines for Kenyans. We were told by Dr. Duale that there's some 10 billion shillings that has been spent now here and there to purchase some vaccines. Where are these vaccines? Are they coming? Dr. Andrew Mulwa joins us in the studio. Dr. Mulwa, the last time was here, was working for the county government. Now, Dr. Mulwa is working for the national government. Hey, Dr. Mulwa.
Let's greet you. Good morning again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, the new doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to the show. I am now working in the Ministry of Health as the Director of Medical Services, Preventive and Promotive Health. And yes, we have vaccines in the country. I think this morning we have about between 400 and 450,000 vaccines in the country, which have been distributed or deployed in about 800 stations in the country, and vaccination is ongoing in these stations. However, it is important to raise that we have a major global challenge in vaccine supply chain. And there is what we are calling nationalization of vaccines, that the richer countries have purchased all the vaccines, have paid the manufacturers in advance to manufacture for vaccination of their people. So through the United Nations mechanism, the WHO COVAX mechanism, we are able to get some of the vaccines that are flowing in this country. They are not flowing at the rate that we would want in terms of the numbers that are coming in. But we have some vaccines in the country. And from the month of June, the supply has been fairly steady, I would say. We have been receiving vaccines through the COVAX mechanism that we have not run out of supply like we had in the month of May and thereabout. So currently, we have some vaccines that are on way. I said we have been doing AstraZeneca. We have received about 2.7 million doses of AstraZeneca. Some have actually been direct donations. You are aware that UK donated 880 doses. Spain, Greek, many countries have come in to donate vaccines to the country outside the COVAX mechanism. Through the COVAX mechanism, we received close to 2 million doses. Through the COVAX mechanism, which is now the global mechanism. We also have expect to receive Pfizer next month. Of course, would have come earlier, but we need super ultra cold chain which is negative 70 degrees Celsius, which because the vaccines that we have been using routinely as a country, we have never had a vaccine that requires that capacity. So we have to build that capacity for storage. Then we also have Moderna that is coming, about 1.8 million doses that are coming in the next 1 week or so. We have the government has purchased Johnson & Johnson 13 million doses, of which we expect the first batch early September. And therefore, our thinking as a government is by the end of December, we should be able to have vaccinated close to 10 million Kenyans. The target is by June 2022, we vaccinate at least 20 to 26 million Kenyans.
You know, this Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson that we've been
Did I
expecting.
mention Sinopharm? We also expect a donation
From China?
from the COVAX mechanism. We expect close to 2 million like Sinopharm.
Expect?
Yes, which should be coming. It's already on the pipeline. It's just shipping. It's a UN system, so they notify us that these vaccines are coming. So that we have already been notified.
And they give you a
vaccines are
timeline
coming.
as well?
Yes, of course. When I speak, I'm talking about 1 week, maximum 2 weeks. They should be here.
You know, when Dr. Duale, who's in charge of the vaccine rollout, was here,
He's the chair of the task force on vaccines.
3 weeks ago, he was telling us within the next 1 week or 2 weeks, we should have these ones. The Moderna and the Johnson and the Pfizer. Now, the Director of Medical Services is here telling us in the next 2 weeks, they shall be here. And we keep asking, so why is this goalpost shifting? Why are these deadlines not cast in stone?
I think I mentioned is a global issue. In fact, if it were in the power of the Kenyan government, we would have had Johnson in July, because we made payments in June and we expected. But I talked about vaccine nationalization. Richer countries are buying the vaccines at a higher price than we are buying, and they have more influence in the pharmaceutical industry than we do, and therefore the prioritization sometimes we are moved down in the priority list when, like, for example, a country like US wants J&J, they will be given a priority because what we are paying per vial is probably 10 times less what they're paying. Because that's the reality of the market dynamics. Because for us, we have to, developing countries, we have to get price subsidizations here and there. So, that is one reality that we are facing. We also have the issue of back handling of these vaccines. So, while, like we say, we want to have the vaccines, remember these have to go through the cold chain. We have to ensure that the couriers, the DHLs of this world, have to schedule so that these vaccines come here. We don't just have vaccines that have arrived in the country and we have the numbers that we want and the vaccines are not viable. They have to be done in such a way that the potency of the vaccine is maintained throughout the chain. So those are some of the things that are causing delay. And when we talk about this, there are official communications to this effect, and we keep on a daily basis following up to check the status of these vaccines.
Dr. Mulua, would it be harmful from your perspective as the Director of Medical Services to actually state and say that we have been promised thus, but we are really not sure? Because the not sure bit never really comes in.
I think I choose to be an optimist, rather to be a realist. The reality is every systems fail, expectations fail, official commitments fail, but I choose to go to be optimistic because the donations that we have been expecting, they have been flowing in the last 2-3 weeks in a fairly reasonable manner. So I would personally say we have commitments. We are engaging our bilateral partners. We are engaging the multilateral partners in COVAX, and we take their commitment. Sometimes it's not possible to meet the commitment, but we take the commitment. And we have a duty to communicate or to share the information that we have to the Kenyan citizen so that they also are in tandem with what the government is planning or what the government is doing as far as the issue of vaccination is concerned.
You know, if I were to contextualize this, I would have to agree with you completely. But it brings about a conversation we keep having here, and it's one of communication. You see, the efforts that you make, they have to be there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had any vaccines in the country at all. However, within the context of wanting to give the country hope, see, when hope is dashed, it's worse than if it was not given in the first place. It may appear that being realistic may necessarily not be the best thing to do, but in my mind it is. Because if people are told, for instance, that there is a delay and there is an accompanying statement that we are not certain about the delay, but we will let you know as soon as we are certain. In my mind, it is far better than if you say it's a delay and in a week's time, in 2 weeks' time, in 3 weeks' time, because we count the weeks. Mm-hmm. And when the weeks lapse, we're saying, okay, now. And this has
how
nothing...
do we trust these people?
Yes, and it has nothing to do with what you're doing and the efficiency and the hard work that you're putting in. It has nothing to do with that. Some of it you have inherited because it's the ministry. So it has nothing to do with the office and you. But because of the history of broken promises, now we even go back to the government. People will, oh, it's government. We are back to square one again, are we?
I think to be fair on this matter,
yes,
the government has done really well in terms of sharing the information that we have. That's number one. Number two, we have had challenges. I was in the counties when we started this exercise of COVID-19 vaccinations.
Yes.
And we actually had, in the beginning, we had we actually had hoped that second doses would be given at 8 weeks. And the government, through the COVAX mechanism, all the demand, global demand, 8 weeks lapse and there are no vaccines in the country. We came back and told the country, look, we are dispended to have these vaccines at this time. We have not received them. But scientific data shows that vaccines given between 8 and 12 weeks are effective. So second dose comes at 12 weeks and not 8 weeks. Isn't that communication? Sometimes when failure occurs, we also communicate. When we get the promise, we should communicate. So we should communicate at all times. When promises are failing, when we communicate, we share the information with the public so that I don't have information that I need to share with the public that the public does not have. Sometimes you will count the weeks, but I will also be coming and telling you, I also anticipated to have these vaccines this week and they have not come. And I think that's the bottom line. And that is the essence of us continuously. Dr. Kwale and the ministry team has been, on an almost daily basis, been sharing the vaccine situation in the country.
That's
and I
very
think,
true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
You know, at the when the 2 weeks lapse,
Gods will be shifted.
And you haven't received, you will come back and say that.
Yes.
But that's where the communication challenge comes in. Because when you say in the next 2 weeks, you make it sound definitive.
It is definitive
that
because
you're receiving
we
them
have
in the
communication to that effect.
But that's where that's
a
out
crux
of
of the matter.
experience.
You know that there could be a delay.
Right? And I think that's where the importance of the communication of how you message should come in and say, we anticipate to have them within the next 2 weeks. However, knowing because of challenge A, B, C, D, we are giving ourselves best case scenario, 2 weeks. Worst case scenario, 4 weeks.
Can I ask a question?
So we work
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Please do.
What would be the value of doing that communication when we already have vaccines in the country and we are not at risk of running out of vaccines and we tell the Kenyans that we have run out of vaccines? What we are actually asking people
the
is
value.
the eligible population, go get vaccinated. We don't anticipate any minute in the foreseeable future that there will be shortage of vaccines.
There was no anticipation a couple of weeks ago. I did not receive my second jab after 8 weeks.
That was in the beginning of the process.
So the value would have been to manage my expectations as well.
Which we did.
That's what I'm saying. So at the very beginning, the value of saying it's between this time and that time, and should they not come, you'll still be fine. At the very beginning is important.
And I think that has been
because
the government communication.
That's not the case. The case was, we're expecting first of all, the first time that our cabinet secretary said we're expecting vaccines, we were expecting them end of December, then January, then end of January, then February, then end of February, and then they arrived. And then the second jab was to come within 8 weeks, then 12 weeks. Then there are some people who did not receive. Then now they have come. Are you seeing what is happening there is that you're creating that doubt in somebody's mind. It's like somebody's telling you, I know I owe you some money. I'm expecting some money to come from somewhere.
I'm not sure when it will come.
By end of day today, you'll have your money. When end of day today comes, and you have not received your money, you start doubting me. And there's nothing as bad as you doubting me, because next time you will not lend me that money. True?
On that aspect of money, I will agree. But on the aspect of vaccines, I think I am convinced that the government has put in elaborate mechanisms to ensure that this communication first goes out. Maybe we could have done not as good through the media, but the structures that have been established by the government. We have weekly task force meeting where counties, and remember this communication sometimes is not necessarily from us who are in the National Ministry of Health, and not from the Cabinet Secretary, from the PS, the DG, or Dr. Akwale. This communication is the service providers. The person at the vaccination center in Makueni, in Kibwezi, in Sultan Hamud, in Nyeri, in Turkana, is the one who actually communicates best. Because we may be talking about vaccines in the national mechanism, and in Lodwar, we have 1,000 doses, and they're about to get finished. So it is also important to realize that this communication is multi-layered. We have civil society organizations, AMREF, Red Cross, who are also working in this space. They also are doing some communication. So I think, and maybe I want to believe, you are judging us from the media communication. But in terms of real-time communication in the communities, there is a lot that is happening in the counties. There is a lot that is happening in the vaccinating facilities. If you go to Nairobi Hospital, they give bulletins on how, when they have vaccines, when they are low vaccines, you go through their mechanism, they have. You go to Aga Khan, the same thing. You go to, and we continuously continue to publish these facilities where most of the communication actually
I'm actually
happens.
waiting for you to mention a government hospital.
I mentioned Makueni and I mentioned Lodwar.
No, I'm talking about the big ones where there are many people like Bagathi, like
Bagathi and Kenyatta.
Loitoktok Level 4 Hospital
Nairobi
is offering vaccines. Yes. The people in Loitoktok do not know that these
vaccines available.
Vaccines are available. The general population.
We are doing communication.
A certain group of people who then are close to information that will know.
We are sharing this information with local media outlets. We are sharing this information through the national government administration structures. We are sharing this information.
See, I'm telling you, it's not happening.
Then where it is not happening, then that is feedback. And what if the value of feedback is to enable us to pull up our socks and improve, so that this information reaches everyone. We have a challenge. Let's
do a case study, okay? Having worked as a CEC in Makueni for long, you therefore must know how many doses, for example, have been sent to health facilities in Makueni. On average, how many?
Yes. So far, maybe about 22,000 or thereabouts.
What is the rate of uptake of this?
I think the last time that they picked was 5,000, which I expect to be over today, and they are receiving others today.
If we went to Makueni, every corner of Makueni, from Emali to Ote to Kibwezi, do you think people know, yes, there are vaccines in this place, I'm eligible, I'm going?
Yes, I would say 100% yes, because one, the county has its own social mobilization structures. We have community radios. They have used those structures. And many counties, Sometimes I say I choose to be optimistic that we may have one area or two that have failure. We actually have an obvious equity issue in terms of vaccine uptake, where in Nairobi the uptake is high, areas around Nairobi, but when you go to northern frontier counties, Mandera, Wajir, Marsabit, the uptake is low. It's concerning us as a government.
Why is it
because low? One, there is communication, there is cultural barrier, there is physical access issues, and as a task force or as a Ministry of Health, we are aware because we are to get the data, to start getting the data, to internalize the data, and just realizing that even as we talk about vaccinating Kenyans, there are areas of this country that are getting vaccine marginalization. So we are now laying strategies to enable us reach these populations in a way that they are able to catch up with the rest of the country.
How? I'd really like to know what the strategies are.
One is outreaches. That the nearest facility in Marsabit could easily be 200 kilometers away from where I live.
Yep.
So I need to ensure that I don't use the Marsabit Referral Hospital or Moyale. I need to use to get other facilities that are closer. So we say for these communities that we can take the vaccine to the health center level. We can take the vaccine to the dispensary level. While in Nairobi, we may not necessarily have to move to the dispensary level. The vaccines are good at the level 4 facilities and over. So this is a conversation that we usually have. We are reviewing this process every week. I am personally reviewing this thing every single day and getting to understand where we are.
One would expect,
and
Dr.
the commitment
Mulwa,
that we can give Kenyans is, for the time being, we are not at risk of vaccine stock out.
I'll ask my question after the break. Let's take the break. Dr. Andrew Mulwa is the Director of Medical Services in charge of Preventive and Promotion Health at the Ministry of Health, national level. He was the CEC for Health in Makueni County, and he also served in the task force for COVID-19. Okay, it's 9:30. Let's take a look at the traffic and weather, and then we continue the conversation with Dr. Mulwa. What questions would you like him to respond to? In issues of vaccine, he can respond to them if you post them on social media. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Johnny. Johnny. Johnny, hata unisikizi. Ni nini umesoma kwa simu hivyo?
Ni gazeti ya leo napitia.
Aje sasa. Si expert.
Ni 5 bob tu.
Keep up with the latest trends and news in health, real estate, finance, business, and entertainment from the convenience of your mobile phone. Dial star 550 star 3 hash to access pull-out sections of the Standard e-paper for only 5 shillings from your telecom line with no additional charges to enable you to stay up to date, informed, and entertained.
All right, Nairobi is sunny in some parts, 17 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 13 today. Cloudy conditions at 15 in Nyeri. We'll go to highs of 22. We'll see highs of 24 in a mostly cloudy Nakuru. 22 will be the high in Eldoret. It's mostly sunny at 16, and 22 mostly cloudy in Kisumu. 27 will be the high in Kakamega, mostly cloudy at 22. Light rain at 25 in Mombasa now, highs of 29, and it continues to rain in some parts of Malindi at 26, going to highs of 29 and lows of 25. We'll see lows of 17 in Kampala. It's mostly sunny at 23, mostly sunny at 25 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 30 and lows of 22. The lows will be 6 in Johannesburg today. It's currently sunny at 13, and 25 will be the low in a rainy Lagos, which is currently quite high at 34. 22 and cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 30 and lows of 22. We'll see lows of 21 in a rainy Beijing. Cloudy conditions at 17 in Paris with highs of 23 and lows of 14. 15 and cloudy in London with highs of 22. And we'll see highs of 30 in New York. Rain showers as they wake up to a Thursday morning at 25 and lows of 24.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, so we're seeing it dying down in some parts, a little bit better coming off of the Thika Superhighway into the city. And also, Jogo Road is looking much better now. But Mombasa Road still continues to have that issue, especially between Imara Daima and the turnoff to the airport. So it still continues. And also outbound coming from the SGR. Langata Road still continues to be an issue as you get to the roundabout at Timor. And entering into the city centre, Huru Highway in and outbound, still having some issues there. So let's keep an eye on things and let's see how they open up. But don't forget to get in touch with us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the day and text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right, so just a reminder, and we're looking at this again in terms of how you use the roads through the day. A message from NTSA and the European Union reminding us of some vital information, you guys, important for us to remember. Okay, so how do you use the road, and how are you taking up your responsibility when it comes to safe driving, making sure that you are wearing the proper gear when it comes to your seat belts, when it comes to helmets, when it comes to what you are or not able to do. So let's look at this once again and the things that we have been reminded of. All right. Do not overboard matatus. That's one thing that we must remember. If all seats are occupied, wait for the next one. Very easy to forget that. It does not hurt if you respected the safety and comfort of other passengers. If you want to enjoy your journey, say no to excess passengers. One thing that we can all remember. When using a border, for example, always remember one passenger at a time and use a helmet in order to be visible to other road users. Wear a reflector jacket, not just so that you are safe, but so that others also can see you. Right?
That's very
Usalama Barabarani starts with you, like me. Fika Salama with NTSA and the European Union.
Personal responsibility issues. Personal responsibility as well, Dr. Andrew Mulo, as we're talking about vaccine and people knowing the importance of the vaccine, the importance of going for the vaccine, the importance of getting the jab. You've said there are some areas of this country where you're seeing low uptake of vaccines. So vaccines have been sent a certain number, but it takes a while for some counties to register high numbers. Even before we go to those northeastern far-flung countries where distance between homestead and hospital is huge, counties like Vihiga, even in the first round, we were still seeing the same. Not Vihiga, but Nyamira. What was the cause of this?
I think, truth be said, that there are a lot of misinformations about vaccines, even amongst very learned people. That one, this is a way of controlling population. When you get the vaccine, you start attracting magnets. I don't know where magnets, after you attract them, where you take you become magnetic and start attracting objects. You lose your fertility. All sorts of things. Even some religious groupings start feeling this is a spiritual fight and all that. And so once you have the vaccine, you are being prepared for the Antichrist. All those things are going through communities. There is usually, even under the routine immunizations that we do, there is a huge anti-vaccination campaign globally. So when you think about this vaccine, and probably other than the flu, the influenza vaccine, which mostly in Western world, they take a jab every year. This is like the first time that in this part of the world that adult population is being asked to take a vaccine. We have had issues with tetanus toxoid, and you have had the religious groupings, some professionals say all sorts of things about them. We have
some who are even members of your profession.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Because there is a difference between science and personal belief. So this was expected. So there is hesitancy to take these vaccines for various reasons, and those misinformations and it's very painful. Last week on Monday, I buried one of my close friends, who was one of the agents of anti-vaccines. He got COVID and succumbed. May his soul rest in peace. But the reality is, even as we continue to pass this message, there are some people, there are communities that are too far from accepting this vaccine as a routine thing.
So there's need then for
continuous community health education.
Okay. From the ministry position, is there a general understanding or even a consideration that one of the ways in which we can open up the economy and stop this business of curfews and such like and get people to go back to gainful employment or even running their businesses is to vaccinate the entire population? If there's that understanding, then really is there a fight tooth and nail to make sure that in the shortest time possible, the majority of the population can be vaccinated from an economic point of view?
Truth be told, if it were in the power of the government of Kenya, we would have done these vaccinations to 60% by now. But we also realize that our state of economy, in terms of the position of the economy globally, is not as strong. So we cannot have the vaccines that we want when we want them because of the issues that I discussed earlier. So the reality is why we are pushing for this vaccination, why we are we are anticipating to have vaccinated 26 million Kenyans by the end of next year, is because at that point we will be able to say we have reached herd immunity and therefore life can open up. You've seen what is happening in Europe. You've seen what is happening in the Western world. They are literally opening their economies as if there was no COVID. They are already thinking about a third booster dose for some of the vaccines. And my honest opinion is I fear that may disrupt the developing countries' efforts to access vaccines. Because why we are having stable access of vaccines in the current period is because they have already reached their demand. And therefore, their demand is not as high. If they create another avenue for demand, I can tell you, we still go to the same global crisis. And we are talking about developing countries. Asia has countries that have this problem. The whole of Africa has this problem. Southern America has this problem. So it is not just an issue of Kenya, it's an issue of global economics. So I think while we are pushing this, and if, like, for example, J&J were to tell us we are bringing the 13 million doses between now and December, I can assure you, we have done it before. We have done immunization campaigns for measles, and in 2 weeks vaccinated 5, 6, 7 million people. We can do it. It has been done
the other day, right?
Yes. And polio is not injectable, so I want to use measles, which is injectable.
It's a Sindano.
The Sindano is different from oral. But we have done it before. We have done immunization campaigns before. We know how to do it. It is now our limit is on the supply chain. If we add 10 million vaccines today and are to be deployed within a month, we can. We have done it. The ministry has done it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's been done.
Yeah.
And I think even
so for us, it is not how. For us, it's we have to balance between the supply chain.
Even the polio aspect of it, whether it's injectable or not, the mechanics of it, whereby you had people walking 2 by 2, going to everybody's home in the country and getting this done, it's possible to be done.
We can do it.
So we're saying the one barrier to this is the supply.
Because today...
There's the other barrier, Dr. Mulwa. And this is on the implementation of running this thing. So the first 4 weeks, we were told that these vaccines are only available. The task force decided, we need to test the system as we roll out. And that's why you had just a few health facilities having the vaccine.
Do you know why?
And then you expanded that and said, all right, now we have seen it, so let's expand and add these other 600 or so health centers around the country. Were these 600?
Yes.
Around the country. Today, as we speak, Nairobi, that has a population of 4 million, all right, that has always been the hotspot for COVID-19. There are people who are wondering, so where do I get the vaccine? Every waking day, people wake up asking themselves, where do I get the vaccine? Yet people know there's a health facility near me. Why aren't you rolling it out to all the health facilities? Why does the NMS have to come out and say, so this is where we are going to roll them out?
Do you know why?
No, I don't.
For the simple reason that I've mentioned. You have 1 million vaccines. Like right now, I said we have 450,000 vaccines for the whole country today. So even if we wanted, we cannot have all facilities have the vaccines today. But when we have now the stable supply, then we can say, yes, we have, like when J&J comes, we will deploy to the dispensary. We have no reason. The dispensaries do vaccination for other childhood illnesses. The same cold chain is required for J&J. So we will use them and offer that. But today, because of limited supply, we can only balance between the supply and demand. So as you deploy, you only deploy where? If you don't tell people go and you take to a dispensary and you only take 10 doses. So the doses, people come and the following day there's nothing. So you have to balance that. So it's a balancing act that we are doing, and we are improving in terms of the commodities within country. And I think when we get there, when we have enough vaccines, you will see even campaigns come outside your doorstep that will say in every community, in every village, we'll have people who are vaccinated.
For example, Joel, who writes in and says, there have been no vaccines at Malindi Hospital. I'm not sure which one he's specific, but if we're saying there have been no vaccines for the last 2 weeks, would this still be part of the balancing act?
No. Absence of vaccine in Malindi, if true, I will pick that up and confirm, is the logistics, county logistics now. We have the vaccines at the national level. We have a depot in Mombasa. We have a depot in Nairobi. And Malindi should be getting from Mombasa. And maybe something within themselves. Maybe they do not have a car to pick the vaccines. Maybe they have not reported back to the county management that there can only be an issue within the Kilifi county issue.
I actually support
management.
what you're saying completely, because I have been in situations where you are told they've run out of vaccines, and in reality, it's logistical. They are available, but somebody hasn't bothered to go and pick them up. Sincerely.
Yes.
And they tell you, we haven't got them. Yes, because somebody hasn't gone to pick them up. And they know they should go and pick them up in order to bring them.
That's Dr. Mulo's officers on the ground.
No, Dr. Mulo does his bit. It's not his bit to take it.
I am now at the national level. When I was in Makueni, I would be the one to physically ensure that Sultan has the vaccines. Now I'm at national level, is to ensure that the continuous supply of these commodities at the strategic stores. Once they get to the strategic stores, then communicate to the counties.
And every county has
every
one.
week to ensure that counties are aware of the commodities that are available, where they can pick them, and we have also a tentative distribution schedule so that you know this is what you're supposed to get. And we also redistribute so that we don't have expiries within the facilities. Like where the uptake is low and is approaching, we also recall and redistribute to areas of high demand.
Yeah, we saw that there was a recall in some counties whereby they were not inoculating, and then thereafter they were asked back. So what happens, and what is the position today on private companies bringing in vaccines? Or are we still saying that any vaccines that will be administered to Kenyans now will only come via government?
I think we have read in media about issues in some countries that opened up private vaccines. For the time being, and for the public health, these vaccines are public health good, and therefore will be government-led, will be a government-led process through and through. We don't expect to open it up for private sector, and for good reasons. One, we have a responsibility to account for the people who have been vaccinated. We have a global responsibility to report who has been vaccinated. So we have to be in control of the process and for the safety of the products that are given. Remember, none of the vaccines has been approved. What we have is emergency use authorization. So therefore, we have not gotten to a point that we can say open market, buy
commercialize
and sell.
Essentially, they're still experimental.
So what is it that we are seeing with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance reaching out to its members and saying we are working to get the vaccines into the country?
We are working together, and they are part of the mechanisms that we have at national level for deployment of vaccines. we will work with them. We will give them the vaccines. We will use them as vaccinating centers. We are working closely with them.
Oh, so KEPSA is not going to import
Yes,
the vaccines?
no. We are working with them to ensure
They'll get
Yes.
the vaccines from
Yes.
government.
They are also going to, there's a plan that they also finance the COVAX mechanism so that we get more vaccines, and so that now for every person they vaccinate from their employees, they get 5 members of the surrounding community to also benefit. So we are working with them. The vaccines availing will be done through the government.
I think that's where the confusion comes in, because communication apparently from KEMSA is that you're an organization, we'd like to vaccinate your employees, and then you'll also support vaccination of others in the community. So pay X amount of money towards that cause. But vaccines are free. So it sounds like we are allowing KEPSA to import and sell vaccines.
We are not allowing them to import. What we ask them, we are mobilizing resources.
So you're fundraising.
We are fundraising from the private sector, because the government does not have all the money. So we are fundraising from the private sector so that they help the government acquire the vaccines, so that we can reach more people within a shorter time.
You know, before you came here, we had a member of parliament, and he has been in among the many committees he has been in, and one which he's currently in, is these committees that look into these affairs of budgets. And there's an amount he mentioned as having been allocated to the ministry.
35
billion. Mm-hmm. Has that money all been spent?
That is what, when I talk about J&J, is what I'm talking about. We have bought 13 million. In fact, the quote price was for 10 million doses. But we, through the leadership of the Cabinet Secretary and His Excellency the President, we were able to negotiate for 3 million more doses of J&J.
So that cost us 35 billion Kenyan shillings.
Did I say 35 billion? It was never that much.
10 billion, according to what Dr. Ahwale told us.
It was never that much.
Where is the other 25 going?
It has never been that much.
No.
Yeah, state the question.
Let's get this thing straight. We were told that what was budgeted for COVID was 35 billion.
For vaccines.
For vaccines. No, not for anything else. Vaccines. So all we're asking is, sometimes we hear it has been budgeted. Sometimes what the Ministry of Finance has only released X amount of shillings. So that's what we're asking. Has that 35 billion been spent?
Been exhausted, so that you go now and start mobilizing funds from the private sector?
Yes.
I think I would benefit from having the government printed estimates, because I am not just going to make political statement. I don't think there was ever that 5 billion shillings for vaccines. The Ministry of Health budget, the whole ministry's budget, is 121 billion. There is no way that 5 would go to vaccines. Only as far as I'm concerned, from the printed estimates that I have not seen that figure in our printed estimates. Maybe there could be some other money somewhere in space, which I don't know. But what I know is from the resources that had been availed to procure for vaccines, the procurement has already been done through the Africa CDC mechanism, which is what we've used to procure the Johnson & Johnson 13 million doses. The other is now the COVAX mechanism, which was not using 35 billion.
Okay.
I do not have the figures with me, unfortunately, but it was never that much. It was never that much.
There's an issue here that may emerge. You know, when you talk about measles vaccination campaign, polio vaccination campaign, we just know it's a vaccine, all right? It's never been an issue of whatever brand it is. In fact, we don't even know. Now with COVID, there's a whole issue of brand A, brand B. Now you're talking about Johnson & Johnson, there's Moderna, there's Sinopharm, there's Pfizer, there's AstraZeneca. All those many vaccines. We have so far only had AstraZeneca. But soon we will have 4 other brands coming into the country. The issue of communication is very, very important, because people will start asking, so which one is more effective? Do I want Moderna? Do I want Johnson? Do I want Sinopharm? How do you intend to handle that?
First, all the vaccines that have been developed through a scientific process, and their efficacy has been approved, and all of them are WHO accredited. The only one vaccine that has an advantage over the others is the J&J, which is one shot, and just for the ease of administration, which means you just need to visit the facility once and you are fully vaccinated. We will, as we deploy the multiple vaccines, we will not be giving people Johnson. We will not be giving people Moderna. We will not be giving people Sinopharm. We will be giving people COVID-19 vaccine. So if you walk to Nairobi Hospital for COVID-19 vaccine, you will get what will be deployed in Nairobi Hospital. Whether J&J, whether Moderna, whether AstraZeneca, whatever it is.
And you'll be advised.
You will be advised accordingly, because we will not give vaccine choice. That's the bottom line. Because
so if I come and I find it's Johnson, it's a single dose. That's what I'll get. I cannot ask. No. I want
something else.
No. We will be giving COVID-19 vaccine, just like you said about measles, and just like when you go to the hospital for an antibiotic, you may yes, you don't ask yes. So you will be given a COVID-19 vaccine, and we need to remain focused on the COVID-19 vaccines. There are many Kenyans who have been sending me messages and asking me, when is J&J coming? I want Pfizer. I want all these. All these vaccines have been proven scientifically to have high efficacy against COVID-19, and all of them are safe, and all of them are good to go. In fact, I think depending on when the clinical trials were done, some that have been given low efficacy are as a result of the epidemiological period in which the studies were done. Like a study is done when we are at the peak of a wave, and you vaccinate 100 people and 10 get COVID-19. Doesn't mean that the vaccine is not effective. If you did when the curve is flattened and there are no new infections, and you give 100 people, you don't expect them to get COVID anyway. So some of these things, and that's why I say all of them are good. All of them are good. In fact, close trials have shown the ones like AstraZeneca, which was being given 60-something, when it is done in the same setup as the others which had been given in something, it actually has proven to be better. These are small trials that have been done, but the reality is the vaccines are effective, are safe.
I have a question, and this one has come also from some of our listeners. This is with regards to the Chanjo platform, the online portal where you go, you can register, you can download your certificate. Now, when I went for my COVID vaccine, I queued, and these people at the queue took my details, and then I got the jab. Now, there's information that's coming that people are being asked to go register yourself, and then you come for the jab. Does that contradict anything?
Not at all. Why? When you went there, the Chanjo platform was new, was being tested. We were not sure whether it could handle the numbers, and therefore, at the time, we could not tell people go book yourself, so that when you just come, give your phone and get injection and go. You had to go queue, ask your ID number, your password, your spouse, and next of kin and all that. Then you are told queue now for the vaccine. You will have, it is efficiency. You will be avoiding that part of the queue. Of course, we understand in this country, there are many people who do not have access to internet-enabled gadgets or smartphones. So those ones, they will come and they will painfully have to queue for that queue. If you don't have you have already booked yourself, and you go to Bagathi and you have the message, you go straight to the vaccination queue and not the registration point. So this is a good platform for those who can access internet-enabled gadgets, because it can be done over laptop, can be done over computer. It's good because it prepares you to go and just get the jab. You spend less time. There is no contradiction.
Asante sana, Dr. Muro. Come again soon when this end of August, 1.8 million Moderna should be here.
I actually thought maybe Monday, Tuesday, this next week, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Why I'm saying 2 weeks is just I am being generous with time.
With time.
I'm looking at Monday. I'm looking at Monday. Actually, Sunday is when the shipping should arrive in the country. So Monday, Tuesday should be in the country.
Okay.
So by the time it gets to the facility,
Wednesday, Thursday.
Asante. City.
Thank you very much.
30 seconds. Remind us the proverb.
A healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer.
Yeah. Healthy person who keeps begging for food is an insult to a generous farmer. Umesikia, Dr. Mpulo?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Have a lovely first Friday of the week. Join us again tomorrow morning. It's the 20th day of August. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life